Hey guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is a story where Naruto graduates a little earlier and has two teachers being Might Guy as well as Kakashi, with Naruto discovering he is a taijutsu prodigy. Now let's begin. Chapter 15. Naruto panted as his arms burned, sweat dripping into his eyes. "Do not drop your arm," Hayate ordered from the side. "A swordsman cannot afford to lower their weapon. It leaves an opening for your opponent and project's weakness. You must maintain your form, no matter the exhaustion or potential injuries." Naruto gritted his teeth and nodded, gripping the hilt tighter. "Discipline is the most important thing for a swordsman to master," he continued to lecture, occasionally turning his head to cough into his shoulder. "Form, technique, speed, power will all come with time but are useless without discipline. Run through the first set of katas." Naruto moved, swinging his sword in purposeful strokes, slicing the training dummy in front of him. He ran through the combinations in his head, the sword and the dummy becoming his whole world for a few minutes. He felt a whack on his shoulder and glanced at Hayate as he finished the last one. The Tokubetsu Jounin swung his wooden sword idly. "You must focus, but you can't lose your awareness of your surroundings. The sword should feel like an extension of your arm. You would not need this much focus for controlling a limb." Naruto huffed. Right now the sword felt like a massive weight had been strapped onto his wrist. He didn't dare voice his thoughts. It was hard-going but effective. He could feel the improvement after every training session, and the last thing he wanted to do is appear ungrateful. He'd asked for the training in the first place, so even if it was grueling, he just had to suck it up. Hayate watched him for a long moment before he relaxed. "You can stop for the day." Naruto slumped to the ground, panting heavily. He just managed to stop the sword bouncing off the ground. The last time he did that, Hayate had gone on to spend 3 hours talking about sword care and maintenance and the consequences of not doing it properly. All helpful information, but Naruto wasn't one for lectures. "You're doing well?" Hayate smiled at him. "I think you're ready to try dual wielding next time." Naruto nodded, lacking the breath to respond verbally. He really needed to take a look at his physical conditioning. It evidently wasn't enough. He had thought that it would be similar to taijutsu, but kenjutsu was an entirely different story. There were so many things he had to think about and be aware of, but he loved it. There was a sort of peace when his mind was so overwhelmed he had no choice but to focus. Hayate was an interesting teacher. In general, he was pretty subdued. Naruto would even go so far as to say he was gentle by nature. He was calm, composed, and Naruto couldn't help but respond in kind. It was very different to Gai-sensei or Kakashi. He did censor himself more than he would with them, but he didn't feel weird about it. Things were straightforward, and while Hayate was quiet, he was not soft. He was an unrelenting teacher and demanded perfection from Naruto. He knew that it was a strict discipline anyway and that it could take years to properly master kenjutsu, but there was nothing patronizing or negative about the way Hayate critiqued him. It was all constructive and matter-of-fact, and Naruto appreciated that. "What did you do to the poor kid today?" They looked over to see Yugao making their way towards them, looking to Naruto with an amused grin. Her long purple hung past her shoulders, and she wore a simple black sweater. Her warm brown eyes looked at Naruto with sympathetic understanding. "He is an absolute taskmaster," she continued, crouching in front of him. "He was this bad when he taught me too, and the worst part is none of our friends would believe it." "You make it sound way worse than it is." Hayate defended himself, but the moment Yugao had arrived, he'd melted. They were so gone for each other, and while that wasn't Naruto's thing, it wasn't the worst thing in the world to put up with. "I asked for the training," he said, finally getting his breath back. "I would be more annoyed if he took it easy on me." Yugao ruffled his hair gently as he stood, and he shook her off, glaring half-heartedly. "You've got a good student," she smiled over at the Jounin. "I do." Naruto wasn't sure how to respond to the blunt praise, so he busied himself with wiping his sword down, coating it in a thin coat of oil before returning it to its sheath. He was supposed to work on taijutsu next, but he was fucking knackered. He might just inhale 10 bowls of ramen and have a nap. "Is next Thursday okay for you?" Hayate walked over to them. "Yeah," Naruto confirmed, running over his plans for the next few days. "I shouldn't be on a mission then." Hayate nodded as he settled next to Yugao, the backs of their hands brushing gently. Naruto rolled his eyes. That was his cue to go. He liked the pair, and they had a sense of serenity about them that he didn't get from any of his other teachers, but he had his limits. He remembered seeing them share a kiss before, and the discomfort at the sight still haunted him. "Thanks, Hayate-sensei," he called out, turning to leave. "Good work today." Naruto smiled to himself as he left the training field. He really did like them, but that was something he kept to himself. Couldn't have people thinking he was going soft. Neji entered the training grounds, hoping he finally had each distance that he could escape the prying eyes of the rest of his clan. He was limited in what he could train while in the compound, and if he was ever going to get strong enough to keep his promises, then he had to train skills that the clan would not approve of. He'd picked the training ground furthest from the village itself. Most never bothered to come out this far, so it was usually deserted. He spotted the orange eyesore almost immediately. He frowned as blue eyes turned to meet his, and a matching scowl appeared on Naruto's face. "What are you doing here?" Naruto glared. "Don't the Hyuga have some super fancy training grounds you can use?" "They do," Neji said stiffly. "I cannot use them for what I intend to train." Naruto considered his words, realization creeping into his gaze. "You're totally rebelling against your clan." "I am taking the opportunity to explore all training available to me," Neji replied coolly. "It is no fault of mine that some of those options are not offered by the Hyuga clan." "That's a bunch of fancy talk for saying yes," Naruto grinned sharply. "Good for you. Fuck the system." Neji rolled his eyes. The other boy was crude, which Neji would not normally appreciate, but there was something about the way Naruto approached things. He called Neji out on things that no one else would dare. His clan did not particularly care to dig any deeper, and his peers were often intimidated by him. It was almost refreshing the way Naruto got to the heart of the matter with only a few select words. He had not seen the blonde around since the argument with Tenten. It had not impacted Neji in any way, but he had noticed it. "How long do you intend to avoid my teammates?" Naruto's grin dropped and he returned to scowling. "What's it to you?" "You are a common topic of discussion," Neji replied, letting the distaste color his tone. "I wish for them to drop it and move on, but they have got into their heads that they would like to befriend you. And you don't." Neji blinked at the question. He could admit to himself that Naruto understood him in a way no one else had been able to. Lee and Tenten considered Neji to be their friend, but he was not sure he reciprocated in the way that they wanted. He did appreciate them as his teammates, and they worked well together. They had their problems. Tenten was hesitant to speak up when she had alternative ideas to his own, and Lee constantly wished to fight him to prove some sort of point. He personally thought that Lee beating him in a fight was improbable, but it would have very little impact on Lee's future as a shinobi in the long run. "I do not believe in wasting my time chasing people who do not want to be caught," he answered. "I have never been one for friends as it is." Naruto raised an eyebrow, but his scowl vanished, replaced with a considering look. Neji could admit to himself that Naruto had a profound impact on his future as a shinobi, and there would always be a part of him that felt connected to the blonde, but he was also not about to turn into his teammates and mope when someone did not reciprocate. Neji had been alone for a long time, and he was perfectly content that way. "Good," Naruto nodded. "I don't do whatever your teammates are after." There was a small voice in the back of his head pointing out that Naruto had been avoiding Tenten and Lee, not Neji, but he ignored it. "Shall I pass on the fruitless nature of this endeavor to my team? Why do you gotta talk like someone stuck a manners book up your ass?" Naruto crossed his arms. "Talk like a real person. The Hyuga are a great and noble clan. Members must uphold the utmost decorum and etiquette as representatives of this legacy." Neji replied, almost verbatim to the teachers he had when he was younger. "It would be a difficult habit to break, considering it had been drilled into me since birth." "Well, you're already rebelling against them," Naruto grinned wickedly. "What's one more thing? Come on, swear or something." Neji lifted one delicate brow. Naruto had brightened up considerably and walked closer to him. Blue eyes shined at him eagerly. "This is ridiculous. You saying you can't?" Neji narrowed his eyes at the blonde. "I most certainly can, you ass." Naruto laughed and Neji blinked at the openness of it. There was no underlying mischief or smugness or whatever Naruto usually did when talking to people. It was unguarded and unexpected. "Oh, this is going to be fun." Naruto smiled widely at him. "The Hyuga ain't gonna see what's coming." "You seem to be enjoying this," he remarked. "Any chance to stick it to the fuckers in charge?" Naruto smirked. "Now, how would the great and mighty Hyuga clan feel about their members learning ninjutsu?" Niji immediately thought back to his clan jutsu instructors. There was a firm, if arrogant, belief that all the Hyuga could ever need was their clan techniques. The Byakugan was a great weapon and married perfectly with the style of taijutsu his clan employed. Niji himself had never seen any reason to look elsewhere for his fighting repertoire, but a part of him had wondered that if he had another card to play against Naruto, that the outcome of the fight could have been very different. If any members of the main branch found out, it would not end well. The Hyuga were very strict about the purity of their fighting style. Niji had never heard of any Hyuga using anything other than the clan techniques. He would have to be careful not use it around his clan members, but out on missions, there would be nothing to hide. He had promised himself to become strong, and he could not do that if he limited himself to the narrow views of his clan. They would greatly disapprove, Niji said, a smile creeping onto his own face. It would be most unbecoming for a member of the clan to use ninjutsu. He could see the delight in Naruto's eyes at the prospect of chaos. Niji was not sure why he was agreeing to this or why he felt more at ease with the abrasive blonde than he did his own teammates. Perhaps it was the absence of any expectations. He decided not to think about it. He had more immediate concerns. I have so much I can teach you. Naruto clapped his hands together. This is going to be good. I can't wait to see their stupid faces. Niji had a feeling Naruto was up to more than teaching Niji some jutsu. He had heard of the blonde's pranking tendencies and vehement hatred of any and all authority, and had an inkling that the Hyuga were in for a lot worse than one rebelling genin. He could not bring himself to care. You can't tell your teammates about this though, Naruto added. I can put up with you because you're an asshole, but I ain't dealing with those bleeding hearts. Niji frowned but let it go. He knew that he would probably be hearing a lot worse if he was going to be hanging around Naruto on a semi-regular basis. This is only for the purpose of training and defying the Hyuga clan, Niji replied. Nothing more. There is no reason for them to know. This was not what he had expected for today, but Niji refused to lose such an opportunity. He had vowed to become strong, and if that meant leaving some of the traditions and etiquette of his clan behind, he would do it. He would not let anything hold him back. Naruto closed his eyes as he savored the beautiful broth on his tongue. He inhaled deeply, the wonderful scent of delicious ramen taking over his senses for a blissful few seconds. The warmth of the gentle steam caressed his face and he smiled. He loved ramen. Everything was better with ramen. He opened his eyes as the flap to the Ichiraka stall was pushed to the side and the familiar voice of his teacher made its way to him. Naruto-kun, Gai-sensei grinned. Hi, Gai-sensei, Naruto replied before he turned his attention back to his bowl. May I have the heartiest bowl of beef ramen tuchi? The ramen chef smiled fondly. Of course, Gai. He nodded, motioning to his daughter to start the order. How are you today? I am having the most youthful day, Gai laughed. A bowl of your ramen will only improve it further. Naruto knew that Gai didn't like ramen as much as he did, but he appreciated the effort. In fairness, no one liked ramen as much as Naruto did. He'd never complained once though in the almost 3 years of apprenticeship when Naruto wanted to eat here. He knew other people got sick of it after a while, although he couldn't fathom why, but Gai-sensei always came with him when he could. He would miss that when he got a new Jounin-sensei. Coming right up, Tucci tapped the bench and went to help Ayam. Naruto continued slurping up the heavenly noodles. This was the first time he'd seen Gai-sensei since the verdict was passed down by the Hokage. He didn't know what he was about to say. He had faith in Gai-sensei, but small, hurt part of him thought his teacher might be grateful to be rid of him. He'd be able to focus on his real team then. I am sorry, Naruto-kun. Naruto coughed in surprise, noodles catching in his throat. He clamped a hand over mouth as he struggled to swallow, grabbing a glass of water and gulping it greedily. A large hand slapped his back strongly in an attempt to help, and he lost the breath he'd just managed to get back. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Gai-sensei asked frantically, standing and hovering over him. Shall I call a medic? I'm fine, Gai-sensei, he said hoarsely. What do you have to be sorry for? I have failed you as a teacher, Gai-sensei announced dramatically, but Naruto could hear the sincerity behind his words. I have not been able to nurture you to Chunin, and I have been deemed a lacking Jounin-sensei by Hokage-sama. Naruto shook his head, unable to help his amusement. Of course, Gai-sensei would take the news as if there was something wrong with him and not Naruto. The man couldn't think the worst of him even if Naruto burned down the village. He would probably cry about the brightness of Naruto's will of fire. It's not you, Gai-sensei. He swirled the noodles around the bowl. The Hokage just showed his true colors, is all. He's just like everyone else. Naruto-kun, Hokage-sama is trying to do his best by you. Gai-sensei didn't say it with as much conviction as he used to. Naruto knew there was an almost pathological need in every shinobi to defend and honor the Hokage. It came from being a military state. He didn't hold it against Gai-sensei, especially since he knew his Jounin-sensei tried to see the best in everyone anyway. I'm the QB container, he said bluntly, uncaring of anyone listening in. It was the worst-kept secret in Konoha. If there is a chance to screw me over, people always take it. There was a moment of uncharacteristic silence, and Naruto worried for a moment that he had finally broken Gai-sensei. Naruto-kun, you are the most hard-working, earnest pupil I have had the privilege of teaching, Gai-sensei said, his dark eyes serious. You are honest and direct, and you do not compromise who you are for anyone. My only wish is that you know how brightly you shine and how much others look up to you, that you may open your eyes to the positivity around you instead of only seeing the negative. You have so much to offer, Naruto-kun. You are only in the dawn of your springtime of youth. A lump rose in Naruto's throat, and he looked away from his Jounin-sensei. He couldn't listen to this. He wasn't any of those things. I'm not who you think I am, he blurted out, the truth pouring out of him. I hate this place. I hate their stupid festivals and markets and their stupid, judgmental looks. I hate that no matter what I do, no matter how helpful I am, no matter how much I avoid them, that the village will always hate me right back. I hate that even with the few people who I can tolerate, that I feel like tearing down this village with my bare hands. I want to leave Konoha, Gai-sensei, and never look back. Just because he was learning from Kakashi and Heiei, training with Sasuke and Neji didn't mean his original goals had faded. He was grateful to them and he put the effort in, but he knew in his heart if he was given half a chance he would abandon them all without a second thought. He wasn't proud of it, but he couldn't be stuck here. He couldn't give up his chance at a life of freedom for anyone. He'd told Guy about this before, but he had never been sure that the man had understood. He knew he could be burning this bridge, but he couldn't have Gai-sensei thinking he was this great, loyal genin he boasted about. He owed Gai-sensei the truth before they went their separate ways. Naruto, I have always known about your goals and I respect your decision, Gai-sensei beamed, placing a warm hand on Naruto's shoulder. My goal was to make you feel as if you could stay if you wished to. I apologize for falling short. Gai-sensei was impossible. Naruto would miss him. Your ramen, Gai-san. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Gai-sensei's beef ramen, and Naruto took it as the reprieve it was. This was too much right now. It had been great being Gai-sensei's student, but he had to move forward. He would be leaving this village one day, and that included leaving Gai-sensei. He just had to think of it as leaving the man a little earlier than planned. Thank you, Tsuchi-san. Gai-sensei's smile sparkled. I look forward to cherishing your wonderful meals for as long as I can. Naruto didn't miss the look his Jounin-sensei threw his way. Naruto loitered outside of the doors of the mission assignment desk, trying to put off the inevitable. The Rinna festival was coming up, and that meant dozens of D-rank missions would be coming up. Naruto hated this time of year. He had been stuck with setting up the decorations every year since graduation, and none of his old tricks of getting out of it were going to work. Last year, he'd purposely dumped them in all the wrong places in terrible condition, and it just led to him being forced to remake them all. Took 3 days, and he hadn't even gotten D-rank pay for it. The Rinna festival also signified the end of the year, and the academy graduations would be in 3 weeks. Sasuke hadn't stopped talking about it for ages, and Naruto was sure that if Sasuke could murder his classmates and get away with it, he wouldn't hesitate. He'd heard some horror stories, particularly about the so-called fangirls, and it just made Naruto grateful that he'd graduated ages ago. He couldn't imagine sitting in a classroom and tolerating that bullshit again. He'd recommended that Sasuke beat the shit out of them during taijutsu practice. The Uchiha hadn't taken him up on as far as he'd heard. He was ignoring the fact he would be forced onto a genin team. He had shit to do, and thinking about it wouldn't change anything. He still trained with Gai-sensei a few times a week, but he'd seen his Jounin-sensei a lot less in recent weeks. It was mainly Naruto's doing, since he figured it would be easier if there was some distance already established, but it also hurt, knowing that those days were numbered. He could shove the misery to the back of his mind if he avoided Gai-sensei. Out of sight, out of mind. Gai-sensei had been busy with his own genin team anyway. They had started on C ranks last month, and it had made it that much easier to avoid them. It had been over 2 months since the incident in the training's grounds, and while the anger had long faded, Naruto was nothing if not stubborn. He did train ninjutsu with Neji occasionally, but that wasn't friendly, that was purely to stick it to the Hyuga clan. They always walked around the village like that, had a silver spoon stuck up their ass. Like they were better than everyone else because they happened to be born with some fancy eyes. Naruto and Sasuke were also born with some cool bloodline limits. The Hyuga weren't as special as they wanted to think they were. It was well known how much they prided themselves on using only clan techniques, so teaching Neji how to throw around huge-ass fireballs gave Naruto a spark of joy he only felt when pranking civilians. It had nothing to do with Neji himself. They did sort of get along by the fact they knew that they were there to get shit done, not be best buds, so Naruto tolerated him. He hadn't seen Tenten or Lee though, and he had no desire to seek them out. Naruto-senpai? He closed his eyes. Why had God forsaken him? What had he done? Surely he'd been punished enough for a lifetime, why would this happen to him? He hadn't physically maimed anyone recently and he was nice to animals. Was that not enough to be granted just the tiniest bit of good karma? Naruto-kun. He opened his eyes and looked flatly back at Gai-sensei. He didn't look at the flock of genin around him. Gai-sensei. Here for the festival missions? The man asked cheerfully. Against my will, Naruto confirmed. What's so wrong with helping out with the festival? Naruto looked at Tenten, raising an eyebrow. He held the look long enough for her to become uncomfortable. She hadn't changed much from when he'd last seen her in the training grounds. He knew that he was being a bit dramatic now with his avoidance of them, but it was just easier. He didn't actually hold anything in particular against Tenten. Her view on his strength didn't actually matter. He was pretty sure she still couldn't hit him with a kunai, but whether it was from lack of skill or backbone didn't really concern him anymore. He didn't get the chance to answer before Lee cut in. It is an honor to be able to contribute to such an auspicious event. He grinned, his smile a pale imitation of Gai-sensei's. We should be honored that we can help the village celebrate and allow the will of fire to burn brighter than ever. Naruto took the other boy in, scanning the green jumpsuit, orange leg warmers, and dumb bowl cut. He was the spitting image of Gai-sensei. He had predicted it a while back, but the boy had taken it even further than Naruto had thought. A spark of anger flared his chest at the sight, although he couldn't pinpoint why. If you say so, knock off, he answered dismissively. Wasn't it enough they got to keep Gai-sensei? They didn't even realize how lucky they were, and Lee didn't even have the decency to have an original thought. He didn't deserve Gai-sensei. He could copy any other jounin in this dumb village. Gai-sensei deserved better than some knockoff that was too busy trying to crawl up his ass than become a good shinobi. Neji was decent and Tenten was questionable, but at least they relied on their own strengths. They didn't try to copy someone they could never measure up to in any reality. He knew his feelings for the boy were evident on his face, but he wasn't going to be Gai-sensei's student anymore. He had no obligation to be nice to this moron. Gai-sensei would be delighted to have a carbon copy, but his teacher wouldn't be tricked into favoring Lee like that. Naruto knew Gai-sensei better than that. Naruto. Tenten began, but she stopped short at the glare he sent her way. Maybe he was wrong about the anger having long faded. The longer he was around them, the more the urge to snap Lee's neck crept up on him. Naruto-senpai, we heard you are being placed on a team of your own. They shall be most fortunate to gain someone with your experience. Lee grinned and Naruto clenched his teeth. There was no way he didn't know what he was doing. He just had to fucking rub it in Naruto's face that he lost Gai-sensei and they had him all to themselves. Gai-sensei had been the first person to meet him where he was at and see him for who he was. He liked Naruto as a person, even when Naruto knew he was being a shit. He even accepted Naruto's ambitions even though they went against his own. Gai-sensei always saw the best in him, and he knew his new Jounin-sensei would be different. He would never have what he had with Gai-sensei, and this asshole wanted to flaunt it? Go fuck yourself, he snapped. He was too wrapped up in his fury to notice Gai-sensei's disapproving look. I'll shove those leg warmers up your ass. Naruto-kun, that's enough. He took a step back at Gai-sensei's words. It wasn't fair. He was pretty used to being punished for shit that wasn't his fault, but this felt like the worst so far. He would not stand for Lee rubbing his face in it, not even to avoid disappointing Gai-sensei. I'm done with him anyway, he spat. He turned away from the quiet team and stomped through the doors, swiping the first scroll held out to him and diving out the first window he saw. He hadn't been this angry in a long time. He crumpled the scroll in his hands at the thought of losing Gai-sensei to that fucker. He could imitate Gai-sensei as much as he wanted, it didn't mean he would have even a fraction of the man's skill. The kid couldn't even beat Naruto. Naruto steeled his resolve. He vowed that no matter what idiots he got stuck with on his new team, he was going to make damn sure he could still wipe the floor with Team 9 on any given day of the week. He would show them that no matter how long they stayed with Gai-sensei, Naruto would be the best damn pupil the man would ever train. Neji sighed as Naruto failed to appear yet again. He had not thought that the run-in with his team the other day would be enough to chase the other boy away entirely. Neji personally did not care about whatever Naruto had against Lee, but he was annoyed that it was interfering with his training. Naruto could at least have the decency to direct his ire at the true target of his rage. There had been no indications towards his outburst when they had first seen him outside the mission assignment desk's doors. He had been indifferent, if a bit unimpressed, but it had not been until Lee spoke to him that Neji had seen the anger ripple across Naruto's features. He had not exactly done much to hide it. Neji was sure Naruto was reacting to Lee dressing like Gai-sensei, but he was unsure about why that would anger the blonde to such a degree. He did ask Naruto when they'd next met up for training, but he had not taken it well. He had begun ranting about pale imitations and disrespect towards Gai-sensei, yelling that dressing like Gai-sensei would not let Lee become half the shinobi Gai-sensei was. Neji had not seen him this furious since that very first fight with his team. Neji could admit that he had poked into the matter a bit soon. Upon asking why that concerned Naruto, the blonde had directed a venomous look his way, spitting some insult at him and vanishing from the training grounds. Neji knew Naruto's preferred method of dealing with things was avoiding them by any means possible, so he should have really expected for the blonde to abandon their training. He had such a short fuse and an ability to hold such a long grudge. Neji personally thought Naruto was handling this like a toddler who had their favorite toy taken from him. It was clear as day that he was jealous of Neji's team. They remained with Gai-sensei while he was thrust onto a team of Green Genin and an unknown Jounin-sensei. He could see how Naruto would think Lee was rubbing it into his face, but Naruto did not know Lee. He had never made the effort. He had never made the effort to get to know any of them really. Lee was not the type of person to do that, and while Neji found Lee to be insufferable at times with his naive enthusiasm, he could see that Naruto was the one in the wrong here. It was not their fault, and they did not deserve his ire. He settled into a stance and began to run through hand seals. He would have preferred to keep learning new techniques, but he could spend time improving the ones he did know. It had been very strange learning ninjutsu, and it had taken some getting used to. His chakra control was excellent from his clan techniques, so it was more familiarizing himself with the hand seals and chakra requirements. He had not used them in front of his team yet, not quite happy with the quality of them. He had been the best in his class and the strongest of his year. Even if he was learning forbidden techniques, he would learn them well. When Naruto finally realized how childish he was being, Neji would show him his mastery of the techniques. He did not need the blonde. He kept the entrance to the training ground in his line of sight anyway. Sasuke tapped his desk impatiently as Irika-sensei shuffled the papers at his desk at the front of the room. He knew he would pass at the top of the class, and he had. The dumb exam hadn't even been a challenge. He'd had harder training sessions with Naruto. He couldn't wait to get out of this place and actually get stuff done. If he had to spend another day with these idiots, he might actually take Naruto's advice and spar them for real. Speaking of the blonde, he'd been weird the past few days. Well, weirder than usual. He'd been pretty sure Naruto was over whining about the whole guy situation, but something had caused it to all flare up again. He hadn't been insulting Sasuke or even responding to Sasuke's own, just trying his damn hardest to kill him. Not that he could complain. Part of the whole reason he hung out with the genin was that he wouldn't take it easy on him. He was the only idiot his age that gave Sasuke a challenge, and while the bruises from their latest spar still stung, Sasuke was satisfied with his progress. He was much faster than last year. Team 7 will be Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura. Sasuke groaned. He would never be free of her. All of his fangirls were annoying, but the pink-haired girl took it to another level. The way she screeched Sasuke-kun made him feel a bit sick. He always felt like he needed a shower after talking to them. And you'll have an already graduated genin join your team due to lack of numbers. Irika-sensei continued, and Sasuke's head snapped up, his heart in his throat. Uzumaki Naruto will be joining you, and your sensei will be Hatake Kakashi. Naruto was going to be on his team. He was going to have one competent member. He was sure he'd heard Naruto mention the name Kakashi before. Usually to complain about him, but if Naruto knew him, then he couldn't be the worst. Naruto also wouldn't hold him back. He wouldn't have to continue going at the snail's pace of his now former classmates. With Naruto on his team, Sasuke could give his all and not have to worry about his team dragging him down. Yes, there was still the Sakura issue, but that wasn't just his problem now. Naruto wouldn't tolerate a fangirl that didn't pull her weight. Iruka-sensei read out the rest of the names, but Sasuke didn't bother listening. It wasn't like he would have to work with any of these dead weights again. Most of them will probably kick the bucket during a mission or something. The teachers gradually started arriving and Sasuke drummed his fingers impatiently on his desk. Where were they? He wanted to get out this building and never look back. Gods, wasn't that a thought? He would never have to attend the academy again. Soon the numbers dwindled and it was only Sasuke and Sakura left. He saw Sakura turn to him in the corner of his eye and he grit his teeth. "Where do you think they are, Sasuke-kun?" she asked in that fake, sweetly sick voice. He'd heard her real one every time she yelled at Kiba or Ino, so he didn't know why she still tried. "Are they running late?" Sasuke rolled his eyes, vowing to stab Naruto as revenge for leaving him here alone. Where was he? Timing had never been a priority to the blonde, but Sasuke needed him to get here soon. Sakura looked like she was working up the courage for something Sasuke really wouldn't want to hear. The door finally opened with a slam and Naruto poked his head in. Blue eyes narrowed. He met Sasuke's gaze and relaxed ever so slightly. "So I'm stuck with you?" He strolled in, hands in his pockets. "Better not slow me down, Uchiha." "Whatever, dobe," Sasuke replied automatically, leaning back and crossing his arms. Naruto hadn't changed much over the years. He was still pretty short, which Sasuke made sure to point out at every given opportunity. He wore a black t-shirt, black shinobi pants with black sandals. His orange, sleeveless hoodie hung open and black. Fingerless gloves had metal plating on the back of the hand. Orange-colored tape around his right thigh secured his kunai pouch and the bottom of his trouser legs. Sasuke hadn't quite believed it when he'd turned up with that orange tape. He couldn't think of where on earth he'd managed to find it, but it was just as likely that Naruto had colored it himself. He'd shaved down the sides and back of his head recently, leaving it slightly longer and spiky on the top. He was still not wearing his hitayate, but at this point Sasuke didn't think he ever would. "You can't speak to Sasuke-kun that way," Sakura yelled, pointing a finger accusingly at Naruto. The amusement vanished from Naruto's eyes as he looked at her. "The fuck are you?" Sakura gaped and Sasuke stomped on the urge to smile. "You can't talk to me like that." "That didn't answer my question." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Whatever, I don't actually care. Who's the Jounin sensei?" "Did they not tell you?" Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "There was a scroll from the Hokage Tower, but I lost it before I could read it." Naruto shrugged and Sasuke translated that to mean Naruto had burned it the minute it arrived at his window. He was a bit more normal today, so Sasuke hoped that meant the whole guy thing had blown over. "Hatake Kakashi," he offered, rolling his eyes. Naruto blinked and Sasuke couldn't read his expression. The blonde definitely recognized the name, but he couldn't tell what he was thinking. "If he fails us, I'm burning his Ika collection," Naruto vowed darkly. "So you do know him. What's his deal?" They were interrupted by Sakura once again. "How do you know Sasuke-kun?" She was looking between them, confused. Sasuke didn't talk to anyone in class, actively avoided the possibility really, lest his brain dribble out of his ears from what inane childish things that were in fashion right now. None of his classmates had seen him talk to someone he actually respected. "I didn't drop him off the side of a building and I've regretted it ever since," Naruto replied completely deadpan and Sasuke snorted. He looked away at Naruto's knowing look. "Kakashi won't be here for another couple of hours." Sasuke sighed and stood. He wasn't going to wait around that long. "Sasuke-kun, where are you going? You're going to get in trouble." He ignored her as he walked down the aisle to Naruto. The blonde tapped the metal of his headband and Sasuke roughly shoved the hand aside. He didn't explain himself. Memories of Itachi doing that very same movement flashed behind his eyes and he scowled. Naruto held up his hands in surrender, looking at Sasuke questioningly, but he shook his head. Naruto immediately backed off and shoved his hands back in his pockets. "If we're not back before Kakashi shows his face, tell him that we'll be around," he called back to Sakura. She had made a motion to follow them and stopped at Naruto's words. Sakura had always been a teacher's pet. She wouldn't risk pissing off their new teacher by disappearing. Sasuke walked through the door, delighted to know that would be the last time he would ever have to set foot in that classroom. "Feels good, right?" Naruto grinned at him knowingly. Sasuke shoved his shoulder against Naruto's but didn't deny it. He was going to be able to move forward and get stronger. He would kill Itachi and restore his clan. He was finally at the starting line. Kakashi popped his head into the classroom and blinked at the sight of the single genin waiting for him. She was pretty skinny and he could smell the perfume from here. Not ideal for fieldwork, and if she passed the bell test, that would be something to address. Where were the other two? Kakashi-sensei? The girl asked hesitantly, and Kakashi smiled. That's me, he said cheerfully. Where are the other two cute little genin? This guy just turned up and kidnapped Sasuke-kun, she cried, actual tears in her wide green eyes. I think they know each other or something, but he was really rude. He just left me here. She seemed genuinely upset. How nice to know that Naruto had introduced himself to his new potential teammate. He dreaded to think what he'd done to the Uchiha. He'd read the reports about Sasuke, and the boy wasn't the most sociable. He was competitive and ill-tempered, which would not be the best match with Naruto. He predicted a lot of fights in this team, provided they passed, of course. Naruto had an advantage in that he knew all about Kakashi's method of testing new genin teams, but the boy wouldn't know teamwork if it slapped him in the face. He summoned Pakken, and the pug appeared in a puff of smoke. Can you find Naruto and bring him the roof? He asked, still keeping the cheerfully tone as Sakura gaped at him. Make sure he hasn't maimed Sasuke. He is a wild pup. Pakken nodded his head and ran off. Kakashi beckoned Sakura to follow him to the stairs leading to the roof. What did you say about them knowing each other? He asked casually. They talked to each other like they did, but he was so horrible to both of us. He didn't listen to anything I said. Poor Sasuke-kun had to follow him. Kakashi had known the chaotic genin for a number of years now, and this was the first he'd heard that the kid might know Uchiha Sasuke. If he'd managed to hide it from him and Guy, because there was no way he told Guy and Guy didn't tell Kakashi, then he might have to reevaluate the kid's skills in espionage. Naruto and Sasuke were pretty well known in the village for very different reasons, and there would have at least been rumors if anyone had seen them talking. Did he threaten Sasuke at all? He said he wanted to throw him off a building. That was pretty in line with Naruto's usual antics, but usually it took a few meetings for him to reach that level of insult. He was mainly grumpy and uncooperative at first meetings. How interesting. He may end up passing a team this year. They reached the roof, and Kakashi gestured for Sakura to take a seat on the steps. He leaned against the railing, and it didn't take long for his summon to appear, Naruto and a very much intact Sasuke following behind. You're late, Kakashi commented, and Naruto threw him a sharp grin. How's it feel? He sniped back, dumping himself on the steps. Sasuke took a graceful seat next to him. Well, my cute little genin. He clapped his hands as he wiped the smirk of Naruto's face. Let's introduce ourselves one at a time. What are we supposed to say? Sakura asked innocently, and he didn't miss Naruto rolling his eyes. That could be a problem. Things you like, things you hate, dreams for the future, that kind of thing. He shrugged. Why don't you go first then? Naruto asked. I'm Hatake Kakashi, he said. Things I like, things I hate. I don't feel like telling you that. My dream for the future, never really thought about it. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies. No, you don't, Naruto said loudly. Naruto, let's start with you. The genin crossed his arms but complied. I'm Naruto, I don't feel like telling you my likes and dislikes. My dreams for the future are none of your business. I have no hobbies. Kakashi stared at him as Naruto grinned back. He knew what the kid was like after being his ninjutsu teacher for years, and it appeared that gaining 2 new teammates wasn't going to change the way he acted around Kakashi. You didn't tell us anything, Sakura accused. I just followed my teacher's example, Naruto drawled, not even bothering to feign innocence. Sakura, you next? Kakashi warded off that argument before it could begin. The girl perked up, a blush covering her cheeks. I'm Haruno Sakura. The person I like, is, she stuttered, her eyes darting towards Sasuke. My dream for the future is. She broke off giggling, and Kakashi sighed. Girls her age were more interested in boys than shinobi training. That could be a problem with Naruto on the team. He had terrible tunnel vision when it came to training, and he didn't understand when other people couldn't do the same. Kakashi nodded to the Uchiha, who'd spent the entire introduction with his chin propped up on his fists, elbows on his knees. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I don't particularly like anything. I don't have dreams, I have goals. I will restore my clan and destroy a certain someone. It was as he feared. Sasuke was gunning for Itachi. He couldn't really blame the kid, but as things stood, he didn't stand a chance. So his team this year was a fangirl, an avenger, and an uncooperative little shit. First, we'll do what we can do with 4 people. Kakashi began his usual spiel, watching their reactions carefully while maintaining his bored facade. A survival exercise. Of the 26 graduates, only 8 will be recognized as shinobi. The rest will have to return to the academy for another year. There was a moment of silence. Sucks to be you guys. Naruto grinned and Sasuke punched him in the shoulder. Shut up, dope. Huh, they did know each other. Okay, you're dismissed. Meet me on Training Ground 7 at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Oh, and I recommend you skip breakfast. You'll throw up. He caught Naruto shaking his head at Sasuke as he hopped off the roof, leaving his new team to talk amongst themselves. What he had learned was Naruto did know Sasuke. For how long was completely in the air. He didn't know how Naruto managed to hide it, and while he had an idea why, it was still a little disheartening. He knew he'd managed to build some trust with the kid, but it evidently wasn't enough. He wasn't sure how it would work with him being the kid's full-time jounin sensei, especially knowing how attached he was to Guy. He was getting ahead of himself. They had to pass the bell test first. Naruto trudged through the forest, cursing whatever gods were out there. Why he had to be the one to find that stupid cat, he had no idea. He had thought that the solo D ranks would stop when he was assigned to his new team, but apparently, he hadn't secured the latch on her cage properly, so it was still technically his mission. He'd handed Tora in 2 days ago. Next time he got his hands on some glitter, he was shoving it all into that paperwork Chunin's desk. It was bad enough he would be back to D ranks with his new team. The new team wasn't as bad as he'd thought it would be. He knew Kakashi wouldn't treat him unfairly, but he wasn't the most proactive teacher. Naruto knew he would have to organize most of his own training sessions if he wanted to keep training at the level he was at currently. Sasuke would join him and thank the gods he had one teammate he could tolerate. Sasuke was as obsessed with getting stronger as he was, and he knew the Uchiha could handle himself. He still objected to the entire team concept, but if he was forced to be stuck with anyone, he would choose Sasuke. The problem lay with the pink-haired girl. Sasuke had told him all about the fangirls in the class, and while Naruto had listened to his complaints, he hadn't really considered that they would get one on the team. She looked like she hadn't met strength training in her life, and the stench of her floral perfume was unpleasant. He wasn't sure Kakashi would let that stand. His nose was way more sensitive. He didn't have high hopes for her, and there was no chance she was at the same level as Sasuke. He knew that they all technically had to pass the bell test to be a team, but part of him hoped that it could just be him and Sasuke to pass. He didn't want to drag around a dead weight. He groaned as he shoved aside another bush. No sign of the brown feline. This was the worst mission. He didn't know why the stupid woman didn't keep better track of it. If she really cared so much for its welfare, she would actually keep an eye on it instead of sending random genin after it every week. He stopped as he saw something that definitely wasn't Tora. It was a Konoha Chunin, but Naruto didn't recognize him. He was dressed in the standard uniform and Chunin vest, with a bandana like Genma's tied over shoulder-length white hair. He had a massive shuriken tied to his back and a large scroll under his arm. There wasn't anything particularly suspicious, but Naruto felt it in his gut. That guy was up to no good. No one trained in this area, and they were pretty far from the village itself. "Hey, have you seen a brown cat around?" he called out. Red ribbon around its neck, pure evil in its eyes. The man turned to him, and Naruto saw the moment he recognized him. It was always the same look of hatred in their eyes. "What are you doing here?" the man hissed. "I literally just said." Naruto glared back. "What are you doing out here?" "None of your fucking business, QB brat." The last words were spat with a venom Naruto hadn't heard in a while. They were interrupted by the sound of distant sirens. That was the fugitive alarm. It went off when there was a security breach. Naruto looked at Chunin in front of him, and the way he tensed at the sound. "Don't suppose you know what that's about?" Naruto asked casually, but he subtly opened his kunai pouch as he did. "Should be for you, demon," the man hissed, looking increasingly tense as the alarm continued in the background. "It is a betrayal that you're allowed to live. You should have been executed the moment you were born." Naruto rolled his eyes. How original. Guess that answers that. Before he had a chance to grab a kunai, the Chunin grabbed the massive shuriken on his back, flinging it at Naruto. He barely ducked in time, rolling to the side and ignored the metal sinking deep into the tree behind him. He activated his bloodline limit, the world almost seeming to slow down around him. He watched as the man dropped the scroll behind him, flipping through hand seals. Naruto could see the jutsu coming through the hand seals of his own and prepared his in return. Doton. Dangon no jutsu. Suetun. Sueden no jutsu. The streams of water from his hands collided with the approaching rocks, dragging them out of the air. He didn't stop as he continued with his next jutsu. Futon. Fujin no jutsu. A massive cloud of dust left Naruto's mouth and soon the whole area was obscured. So maybe Kakashi had a point about learning ninjutsu. Maybe it was good to have a long-range option that wasn't his kunai or shuriken. Still, as he launched himself towards the enemy, there was nothing better than feeling their nose cave in underneath your fist. The Chunin was forced to take a step back, holding his bleeding face in one hand as he threw kunai with the other. Naruto dodged them easily, Emperor's eye showing every twitch of the Chunin's muscles, every bead of sweat. Every move the man made was telegraphed to Naruto as plain as day, and he grinned viciously as he engaged the man in taijutsu. He hadn't been able to use his bloodline limit in a proper fight in forever, and he laughed as he swept the man's incoming punch to the side, landing a foot deep in his gut in retaliation. The dust was starting to clear up and Naruto could see the man's seething face more clearly. "Die, demon brat!" he screeched, missing another blow as Naruto stepped beneath it. He was finally able to keep up with his bloodline limit. 3 years of training was finally paying off. All those games of Jankenpa, it helped that this guy was so slow. Gai-sensei was way faster and hit way harder. He watched for the man's center of gravity, and as it switched very briefly to one leg, he took his shot. He kicked the man's shin, feeling the bone give way beneath his sandal. He went down like a sack of bricks and Naruto kicked him in the face. He stopped moving and Naruto remained still, watching for any twitches of movement. Nothing. He was still breathing, but it sounded wet, a sort of gargling in his throat. Probably not a good sign, but he didn't look like he was getting back up anytime soon. He brushed the dust off his hoodie as he walked over the massive scroll, opening it curiously. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu? That was the clone technique Kakashi taught him not long ago. Hadn't he said it was forbidden or something? Why did this guy have it? Stop right there. Naruto looked over as another Chunin ran up to them. He did recognize this one. He was an academy teacher. Irika. Something? He was pretty sure he was Sasuke's teacher. Put the scroll down and your hands in the air. Naruto blinked. What? You are being charged with stealing the forbidden scroll. Irika continued and everything finally clicked. I didn't steal fuck all, he called back. That was this guy. Irika's eyes widened as he took in the state of the crumpled Chunin. Mizuki wouldn't do something like that. He ran over to check his pulse. What did you do? He tried to kill me first, he shrugged, propping the forbidden scroll against his leg. I was just looking for the stupid cat and found him in the forest with this scroll. Irika didn't look like he believed a word he said and Naruto sighed. Maybe he should have let the guy go and betray the village. Would serve them right. If the guy had just said he was working towards Konoha's downfall, he might have not bothered fighting him. We can go to interrogation and they can prove it, he said, hefting the scroll onto his right shoulder. You carry him. He didn't bother waiting as he walked in the direction of the village. No good deed went unpunished. He still had to find that damned cat. Naruto trudged to the meeting point, hugging his bag close to his chest, the aroma of ramen rising gently to caress his face. He didn't want to be here. All he wanted was to inhale his ramen and sleep for a week. But no, he had to come and sit a dumb test that determined if he got a team that he didn't even want in the first place. Interrogation had kept him for hours, and then finding the damn cat had taken even longer. He'd thrown the beast at the fucker who'd inflicted it on him and expressed in no uncertain terms what he would do to the cat if he ever got assigned that mission again. He had savored the fear on that Chunin's face, but it hadn't been enough to balance out the irritation and exhaustion from the night's events. The bridge finally came into sight and he saw Sasuke trying to ignore the fangirl. You're 2 hours late, Sasuke called out to him. I did tell you Kakashi would be at least 3 hours late, Naruto called back. Why did you bother coming here earlier? I wanted to train, but then you didn't show. I was busy debating the merits of murdering a cat. Sasuke scowled at him and Naruto grinned mockingly back. He slumped to the ground beside the Uchiha, back against the bridge's railings, and dug his first bowl out of the bag. Ichiraka ramen was exactly what he needed after last night. Kakashi-sensei said not to eat, Sakura sniped. He also said to be here for 5 a.m., Naruto pointed out, shoving a massive pile of noodles into his mouth. Lesson 1, don't listen to Kakashi outside of training. She looked disgusted as Naruto chewed around his words, but he wasn't bothered. He was starving. Did you eat? He asked Sasuke, and the other boy didn't look bothered, far too used to Naruto antics to care. You did say to. He nodded and Sakura's face fell. You're going to get in trouble. She looked genuinely worried for Sasuke and Naruto snorted. He swallowed his latest mouthful and pointed his chopsticks at her. This ain't the classroom, he said directly. This is the real world. You would eat for missions or training, even if you thought you were gonna puke. You don't know where your next meal could be coming from, and if you ain't eating, you ain't performing your best. Gai-sensei had been the one to really drive that into his skull. Food wasn't the most abundant for him growing up, and he'd learned to ration it appropriately. When Gai-sensei had found out, he'd gone on a 3-hour-long lecture about the role of nutrition in health and training. It had prompted Naruto to raid the library for recipes that he could afford to make. He ate a lot better now and only had 1 cup of instant ramen a day. The ramen was non-negotiable. I have to maintain my figure anyway, Sakura sniffed and Naruto frowned. What are you talking about? You know, my weight, Sakura said slowly. I'm on a diet. Naruto didn't know. Why did her weight matter? Did it affect her training? She wasn't an Akimichi as far as he knew. Diet? Sakura looked at him as if he'd asked what color the sky was. Naruto shoved in another mouthful, still pretty confused. He knew that having a balanced diet was important, but she made it sound like purposefully eating less was good. Naruto had many times in his life where he didn't have enough to eat, and it definitely hadn't been good. Are you intentionally being dense? She demanded, and his mood soured. No, he snapped, slurping the remains of his bowl and starting on the next one. I just don't get how starving is a good thing. He knew she was going to be annoying. So what happened last night? Sasuke broke in, arms crossed. You look like that time you had to clean the Hokage mountain all night. Naruto groaned at that memory. The painting part had been fun but not really worth the punishment after. Next time he was using water-soluble paint. You heard the alarm? Sasuke nodded. I caught the guy, but then they thought I did it, so they brought me in and then I had to go find a cat. Why the cat? You'll find out, Naruto muttered. Every Genin team had to do the Tora mission and his wouldn't be an exception, even with his threats. He should call in sick that day. Good morning, my cute little Genin, Kakashi announced as he appeared in a puff of smoke. You're late, Sakura screeched as she pointed a finger accusingly. I saw a black cat on the short path, so I had to take the long way around. Naruto swallowed the rest of the broth and chucked the bowl back into the bag. He sealed it into one of his scrolls to dispose of later and looked up, finding that everyone was looking at him. I did recommend you avoid breakfast, Kakashi said lightly, but Naruto could tell he was a little annoyed. So? Naruto could tell that Kakashi would make him regret that later. Oh well, it was a stupid recommendation that was meant to trick them or something. He'd known Kakashi long enough to know that he had looked underneath the underneath, and that translated into eating breakfast. Not his fault that he hadn't fallen for it. He bounced to his feet to listen to the explanation of the test. Sasuke ran for the trees the minute the test began. So he and Naruto just had to get a bell. There was no chance Sakura was going to get one. Naruto knew the Jounin, so he should have an idea of some weaknesses they could exploit. He landed among the branches, turning to observe the Jounin, and groaned as he spotted Naruto standing opposite, arms crossed. Sasuke just knew he had that dumb look on his face. Naruto liked to taunt his opponents, and it appeared Kakashi was no exception. He wasn't sure what to make of the Jounin yet. He was dressed in the typically Jounin uniform, and his wild, spiky silver hair was held back by a Konoha Hitai 8 that was slanted to cover one eye. A mask covered the rest of his face, and Sasuke itched to see what was beneath it. He'd been pretty deadpan, borderline bored, every time he'd spoken to them so far. I'm going to punch you in the face, Naruto announced. Aren't you supposed to be going for a bell? Kakashi replied, hands in his pockets. Was he even taking them seriously? His eyes widened as Kakashi pulled out an orange book out of a pouch on his belt and proceeded to completely ignore Naruto. He wasn't taking them seriously at all. Naruto made a hand sign and clouds of smoke appeared around the clearing and Sasuke blinked at the field of orange. Naruto liked to use a clone, but Sasuke hadn't seen this many before. The army of Narutos yelled and ran towards the Jounin, being taken out as fast as they could reach him. Sasuke startled at the tap on his shoulder, whipping out a kunai and swinging it as he spun. "Watch where you point that thing." Naruto dodged the weapon with ease. "I thought you were going to hide in your clones," Sasuke replied, stowing the kunai. "That would never work against Kakashi. We gotta come up with something way better. He may not look like it, but he's super strong when he bothers to try." The clones were quickly diminishing in numbers and Sasuke took out a couple of shuriken as the man exposed his back to them, occupied by the Naruto clones climbing onto his back. He flung them out and grinned when they struck his shoulder, spraying blood on the last remaining clone. The clone started to shout about how gross it was before it vanished and Kakashi was replaced by a log. "Kawarimi!" Sasuke cursed under his breath as he and Naruto moved from their tree to move further in the forest. "Did you really think that was going to work? Shut it!" There was a distant scream. Kakashi had found Sakura then. He looked back at Naruto, but the blonde didn't even blink. Deep in thought, Sasuke had an idea of his own. He stopped and pulled on Naruto's hoodie before he could continue to the next tree. "We need to set a trap." Naruto's eyes glittered. "Now you're talking. Where do you think you're going, boys?" Naruto watched Sasuke leap down from the branches to face the Jounin in the small clearing. Sasuke's plan was pretty good. He knew the Uchiha also wanted to show his worth to their Jounin sensei, so he was happy to take a step back and let Sasuke take the lead. He wanted to see how Kakashi would react, and if Sasuke could distract him enough for Naruto to get a swing in, then all the better. "I'm not like Sakura," Sasuke hissed. "Not mentioning Naruto?" Kakashi turned a page. "I am interested in how you two know each other." For someone who pretended not to care about anything, Kakashi was one nosy bastard. "Naruto's not here," Sasuke snapped. "I'm here and I'm going to be the one to beat you. Say that after you get one of these bells." Naruto knew that there was no way Kakashi didn't know he was here. The man took after his summons. Naruto had skipped out on ninjutsu training once to prank some civilian council members and he hadn't even gotten to the glitter when the man appeared out of thin air. He watched Sasuke fling shuriken at Kakashi, which the man easily dodged. He grinned as he watched the same projectiles tear through the hidden rope, unleashing another barrage at the Jounin and forcing him to put the book away. He landed and Sasuke was on him immediately, swinging a leg directly into Kakashi's face. The Jounin easily blocked and caught the fist Sasuke swung at him. Sasuke twisted in the man's grip, bring his free leg on top of Kakashi's head, but Kakashi managed to block with his forearm. Naruto was pretty impressed. Sasuke had used this move on him before, but it looked way cooler from the outside. He hadn't been able to stop the second leg, but thankfully the bleeding had stopped within minutes. He leaned forward eagerly as the soft clink of a bell reached him. Sasuke almost had it. "Take that, Kakashi." The Jounin threw Sasuke off of him and he rolled, standing to face their Jounin sensei once again. "Well, I have to say you are different from the others in your class," Kakashi called. "I'll grant you that." Sasuke huffed and flashed through the hand seals. Naruto grinned. He started on his own and knew the clones they'd placed around the area were doing the same. "Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Futon, de Tapa." Naruto released the stream of air from his mouth, chunking a bunch of paper seals into it to carry them along. Identical attacks appeared in a circle around Kakashi, leaving no room for escape. Sasuke immediately ducked for cover as the massive fireball collided with the wind techniques, the entire field bursting into flames. Kakashi disappeared from view as the fire raged, the explosive seals catching light and exploding all over the field. The sound could probably be heard back in Konoha. It eventually settled down as the fire ran out of fuel, and all that was left was a blackened field. Naruto's eyes narrowed as there was no sign of Kakashi. "You didn't say there were going to be explosive seals, Dobe?" Sasuke appeared at his side, the edges of his shirt slightly charred. "I wanted to put my own flair on it," Naruto grinned. He looked away to search for Kakashi again. "That was a good try, but you still have a lot to learn, my little genin." He turned, an untouched Kakashi waving his Ika at them. He didn't think that would finish him off, but he would have at least liked to see the man slightly charred, maybe burn the book a little. He scowled as the distant sound of an alarm clock sounded. It was a good idea, Kakashi continued, but Naruto didn't want to be patronized. He didn't even get close to punching him. Just a few more minutes and he could have had him. He'd been forced into a ninjutsu battle and he knew that underneath that stupid mask, Kakashi was being all smug about it. Gai-sensei would have at least fought him with taijutsu instead of being all evasive with that pervy book. He barely even got to fight at all. He scoffed and began stomping his way back to the field. Sasuke sat next to a grumpy Naruto, Sakura tied to a log for some reason. He hadn't seen her during the test at all. He was annoyed that he'd managed to get so close and still failed, but Naruto was in an even fouler mood. He hadn't spoken a word since the alarm went, preferring to glare at the ground. Whatever, he would beat the answer out of him later. So about the exercise, Kakashi held up a finger. I've decided that the pair of you are being dropped from the program, immediately. Sasuke startled. He couldn't be serious. He was being lumped in with Sakura. He'd touched a bell while she hadn't done anything. Fury welled up within him and he charged at Kakashi blindly. The world shifted and he was forced onto his stomach. The wind knocked out of him and his arm twisted painfully behind his back. Let go of Sasuke-kun. Sakura strained against the rope. You can't step on him like he's some sort of bug. Naruto hadn't even flinched, just looking at them unimpressed. He could go screw himself. He didn't have to worry about being sent back to the academy. Why do you think we put you on three-man squads? Kakashi pressed down on his back. Did you consider that for even a moment? You just abandoned a teammate to die, not even attempting to see if she was okay. We put you on three-man squads, not two, for a reason. How is our problem that she can't look after herself? Naruto rolled his eyes and Sasuke tried not to wince as Kakashi's grip tightened. We're not her babysitters. I thought you had it when I saw you working with Sasuke, but teamwork involves everyone, even people you don't like. If I asked you to kill Sakura now or Sasuke dies, what would you do? Kill her. Naruto didn't even hesitate, ignoring Sakura's sob. Sasuke is way stronger and wouldn't hold me back. Kakashi released Sasuke roughly and he scrambled away from the furious Jounin. That attitude of yours is going to have to change, Kakashi said darkly. I am going to give you one last chance. Eat lunch now to build up your strength, but Sakura doesn't get any. If anyone tries to feed her, they will immediately fail. I make the rules, you follow them. Got it. He vanished from view, leaving behind only the sound of Sakura's sniffling. He jumped when one of the bento boxes was thrown his way. Naruto had already dug in and Sasuke wondered sometimes about the blonde. While Naruto's apathy was something he appreciated, sometimes he wondered if the blonde was actually capable of caring about anyone. Well, other than Guy. Would you really kill me? Sakura's voice was smaller than Sasuke had ever heard it. Naruto looked up from his rice. If it came down to you or Sasuke, he shrugged. Yeah, pretty much. It's nothing personal though. Sakura's sniffles became louder and Sasuke sighed as her stomach rumbled even louder. He piled some rice on his chopsticks and held it out to her. Sasuke-kun, I can't. Just take it. He shoved the chopsticks forward. Kakashi's gone and we need to get those bells as a team, otherwise he's just going to fail us again. You didn't eat breakfast. You'll be too weak to be useful if you don't eat. Naruto didn't say anything as Sasuke glared at him. The blonde pointedly looked away until Sasuke chucked a rock at his head. He turned back with a scowl. What? Give her some of yours, Dobe. Why should I? She needs it more than you do. I thought she was on a diet anyway. Sasuke threw another rock at him. Fucking fine, but she's still going to be pretty useless. And I'm only doing this to piss off Kakashi. Sakura hesitantly took the rice from Sasuke, her tears glistening on her cheeks. Naruto shoved one of the mini sausages in her mouth straight after, causing her to choke. Sasuke was still impressed that he even did it. The blonde was so territorial about food at the best of times. He'd gotten the other genin his groceries for years, he'd seen what he was like. There was a burst of smoke and a furious Kakashi appeared in front of them. You broke the rules, he accused. I hope you're ready for the punishment. He flipped through unfamiliar hand signs and dark clouds appeared above their heads, rain starting to fall. He heard Naruto mutter dramatic asshole beneath his breath. We're all on this squad, Sasuke spoke up, meeting Kakashi's gray eye without flinching. Yeah, that's right. Sakura backed him up. There was a moment of silence. We can't kick your ass if one of us is weak, Naruto finally added, although his reluctance was palpable. The three of you are one. That's your excuse? Kakashi leant over to meet them at eye level. You pass. Sasuke froze for a moment as those words sunk in. They passed? You're the first squad that ever succeeded, Kakashi continued. The others did exactly what I said and fell into every trap. In the world of Shinobi, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. They'd passed. Sasuke didn't know how this team was going to work or what was going to happen, but for now they'd passed. He was officially a genin and one step closer to his goals. Sakura tapped a foot on the ground as she waited for the rest of her team to turn up. The test the previous day had been absolutely horrifying. That image of a dying Sasuke had kept her up half the night, and Naruto's casual admission that he would kill her hadn't helped things. Her mom had been so worried about her, and Sakura had had to reassure her that she still wanted to continue as a kunoichi. It was a lot different than what she had imagined at the academy. When she'd heard she was going to be on a team with Sasuke-kun, she had imagined countless scenarios where she would impress him and he would instantly fall in love with her. She'd been the top kunoichi in their year, beating out even Ino Pig, so she hadn't seen any obstacles in her path. She studied so hard in the academy and felt that she was prepared for anything that would be thrown her way. Then Naruto appeared. He was horrible and cruel and utterly ruthless, and Sakura didn't know if she could work with him. When she told her mother about her new teammates, she had reacted so weirdly to Naruto's name, saying that she should stay away from him or swap teams. She wondered if her mother had met the boy. She could imagine anyone who met him having the same reaction. Sasuke-kun seemed to be exception, but that just made everything even more confusing. Sasuke-kun shouldn't be associating with someone like Naruto, and she couldn't fathom why he did. She knew Sasuke-kun better than anyone. He was calm and brave and serious and strong. He was better than Naruto, and he shouldn't even be acknowledging the blonde. And yet, Sasuke-kun had spoken more to the blonde than he had anyone the whole 4 years in the academy. Sasuke-kun had always had this lone wolf quality to him, something she had often admired, but to find out he did speak to someone and it was this horrible, selfish boy, she just couldn't understand. He even worked with him during the bell test. Sasuke-kun never worked with anyone. She heard distant voices and she quickly checked her hair. Naruto didn't matter. She was on a team with Sasuke-kun. This was her chance to impress him and win his heart. He would see her in a new light and fall head over heels for her, and then they would date and get married, and Ino Pig wouldn't be invited to the wedding, and then, "Hey 8 would kill me if I taught you any kenjutsu." Naruto's voice carried over to her and she scowled, quickly smoothing it over as Sasuke came into view. He's super serious about the right way to learn and the lessons and shit. It took me ages to get him to let me train with both swords. I'm not asking for a whole lesson, Dobe, Sasuke said. Just the basics. Only if you teach me that move you used on Kakashi. Done. The pair walked towards them and Sakura watched Sasuke-kun, an ugly feeling twisting in her gut as she realized he'd never looked at any of his classmates like that. Had Sasuke-kun not taken any of them seriously? She took a breath and shook her head. She had to pull it together. They were destined to be together. She just had to show Sasuke-kun. Good morning, Sasuke-kun, she called out, ignoring the blonde. He looked towards her and she could see something flicker across his face before he looked back at Naruto, ignoring her. That was fine. He had never replied to anyone's morning greetings. It just added to his coolness. It would be that much sweeter when she finally won his heart. I want to work on my speed, he said to Naruto. I wasn't fast enough yesterday. Naruto grinned at him. If you insist. I swear if you stab me again. If you were faster, you wouldn't have been stabbed. Shut up, Dobe. Are you going to hurt Sasuke-kun? Accused Sakura, not liking the direction this was going. The pair looked at her and she took a breath, holding firm. She passed the test. She was a part of this team too. Naruto's whiskered face was unreadable, but the way he looked at her, she felt like she was being tested like the final exam at the academy. The only problem was she didn't know what she was being tested on. Not if he dodges, Naruto finally drawled. What training are you doing? She continued. Speed training, he answered her. We set up a track and throw kunai in intervals. The longer the exercise, the faster we throw them. The point is to be faster than the projectiles. It's pretty good for learning to dodge too. Sakura had never heard of a training exercise like that. It sounded dangerous. But you could hurt Sasuke-kun. Not if he dodges, Naruto said slowly, exaggerating his words. There must be safer ways to train, she argued, pointing a finger at him accusingly. You just want an excuse to hurt people. Something closed off on Naruto's face and Sakura felt uneasy. This was the same boy who had chosen to kill her without any hesitation. She'd seen how cruel and ruthless he could be yesterday, but she had assumed that he wouldn't actually hurt a teammate. He wouldn't. That would be too far. We could practice with you first, Naruto suggested with a glint of something in his eyes. Sasuke finally interrupted them, scuffing the back of Naruto's head. You can't maim her just because she's annoyed you, Sasuke glared, annoyed. We don't have time to deal with that mess. Sasuke-kun had protected her. He did care. Hey, I didn't say I'd hurt her. She just has to dodge. I'm including her in training. Naruto argued back, but even Sakura could tell he didn't have good intentions. She won't be able to do the training. Sasuke rolled his eyes. She'll be way too slow and waste our time. Sakura froze. She probably won't be able to do any training with us. She's way too weak. Sakura didn't even notice the tears forming in her eyes, still stuck on Sasuke-kun's words. The way he said it, it was so matter-of-fact, like he was saying the grass was green or fire was hot. She could tell he wasn't trying to be mean like Naruto was. He really believed what he was saying. Sasuke-kun thought she was weak? Damn, you caught me? Naruto raised his hands, laughing. I just wanted to show her the difference between us. She's not going to get far as she is, and it would be better if she found out now. Less time hauling around a deadweight, you know? Sakura could hardly breathe. How can you be so cruel? She yelled, tears streaming down her face. I passed the academy too. I passed the bell test too. I'm a genin too. Naruto remained unfazed, raising one eyebrow. You're not taking it seriously, he replied. You're more worried about your hair or marrying Sasuke than being a kunoichi. I bet you couldn't even run laps around this training ground. You'd get sweaty or dirty or something. Being a shinobi isn't like they taught you in the academy, and I ain't working with anyone who isn't willing to pull their own weight and put the damn training in. I ain't here to waste time. Sasuke and I have goals to reach, and we ain't gonna be held back by someone who doesn't even take training seriously. Sakura looked desperately over at Sasuke-kun but found nothing. He wasn't even looking at her. She'd never felt as alone as she did right now. All her fantasies of winning Sasuke's heart and proving Naruto wrong were evaporating, and she didn't know what to do. They weren't taking her seriously. Her, the top kunoichi of her year. She had been so confident when she'd graduated, and now… A puff of smoke appeared and Kakashi-sensei appeared, clapping his hands. Good morning, my cute little genin. It fell flat as the uncomfortable silence continued. Kakashi-sensei looked between them before turning immediately to Naruto. What did you do? Why do you assume it was me? Naruto snapped. What did you say to her? Kakashi waved a hand in Sakura's direction. I just made the realities of her situation clear. Naruto crossed his arms. She's not taking this seriously, and I don't want to work with someone half-assing everything. She's made the choice to become a kunoichi, and she should honor that. That's not for you to decide, Naruto, Kakashi said exasperatedly. Sakura didn't hear him saying otherwise, though. I'm feeling sick today, she stammered out, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. I need to go home. Without waiting for a reply, she turned and walked away. She couldn't be there right now. Thoughts were swirling around her brain in a storm she couldn't untangle. She heard Kakashi and Naruto continuing to argue behind her, but she couldn't make anything out, not bothering to try. She didn't need to hear more of what they thought of her. She was the weakest link of the team, even Sasuke-kun saying so. She didn't know what she was going to do. Naruto watched Sakura struggle through some physical conditioning exercises. He hadn't expected her to come back the next day with the way she had fled, but here she was. She was a lot quieter, not even speaking to Sasuke, and Naruto wasn't sure if he could trust it. No one changed that quickly, and just because she suddenly got some motivation to put some effort in didn't mean that it would last. Kakashi hadn't shown up yet, so they were training on their own as per usual. He wasn't sure where Sakura had got the training menu, since he was positive she wouldn't have been able to find Kakashi between then and now. He guessed she'd made it herself. It contained all of the basic exercises, but they were being done in a weird order, almost as if she was just running through a list rather than working towards specific goals. Whatever, it wasn't his problem. He supposed the fact she was doing anything was the main thing. "I've never seen her allow herself to get dirty before," Sasuke commented beside him from where they were taking a break. "She used to complain about it all the time in the academy." Naruto looked back at the girl, observing the dirt on her cheek and the sweat pouring down her face. "That's not exactly a high bar," he replied, taking a swig of his water bottle. Sasuke shrugged and Naruto rolled his eyes. Kakashi should be arriving soon. Things had been tense yesterday after the whole Sakura situation. He knew Kakashi had all these ideas and beliefs around teamwork and standing up for your comrades, but Naruto didn't have time for it. He didn't see why he had to put up with a weak teammate. Kakashi seemed to think they were only as strong as that weakest link. Naruto thought that was bullshit. "I wasn't wrong about her," he felt the need to say. "No, you weren't," Sasuke said quietly. "She needs to decide if she is going to be a kunoichi or not. What she is doing now is not enough." Naruto may not buy into the whole teamwork thing, but if he was going to be forced onto a team with anyone, he was glad it was Sasuke. He'd known the other boy for a couple of years now, and other than Guy, he was probably the only other person in the village who really knew him. It was the same for Sasuke. Naruto knew he was the only one who saw Sasuke for Sasuke rather than the last Uchiha or the genius genin. He'd seen Sasuke fail and fall on his face so many times, but he kept trying, mastering whatever was in his path with a singular focus. He could respect his hard work. He also had never tried to change Naruto, just dealing with him as he was and giving as good as he got. He appreciated that too. He heard the faint sound of footsteps and steeled himself. He and Kakashi had never managed to find common ground on this topic, and now the man was his Jounin sensei. He was sure that it would keep coming up. He missed Guy, he would just let Naruto get on with things. He knew Kakashi was trying to be a good teacher in his own way, but it wasn't helpful. He wanted things to back to the way they used to be, when Kakashi was his ninjutsu teacher and they didn't have teammates to worry about. "Good morning," Kakashi said brightly. There was a moment of silence as Sakura jogged over to join them, but no late accusation followed. Good, Naruto had no desire to live through that every day. Best they figure out now that Kakashi would be late to his own funeral. There would be a lot of independent learning as his students. He grinned as Kakashi pouted. He knew the man loved giving his weird excuses for his lateness, but if they didn't ask, then there was no reason for him to say. It was petty, but Naruto thrived on pettiness. Kept him sane. "It's nice to see that you're already training on your own," he continued. "What were you working on?" "Taijutsu," Naruto answered for both him and Sasuke. All eyes turned to Sakura. "I'm working on my fitness," she said. Green eyes turned to the ground and shoulders hunched in on themselves. It was like he was looking at a completely different person. All the confidence and bluster was gone, leaving behind a nervous shell. She wasn't wearing perfume today. Her pink hair was in disarray and her face shined with exertion. She obviously hadn't spent as much time on her appearance this morning. Naruto wasn't sure this was an improvement. Sure, she was a deadweight when she had been filled with false confidence and entitlement, but she wouldn't be much use without a backbone either. "What training program are you using?" "I read some books and found some exercises," as Naruto had suspected. "It's a good start, but I can help you find one that works better for you," Kakashi smiled. "Now, shall we see about some D-ranks?" Naruto scowled, debating if he could get away with replacing himself with a clone. He fucking hated D-ranks. Kakashi wouldn't even notice, too busy reading his Ika. Sasuke would get annoyed, but he could find his own clone technique. "No clones, Naruto." Naruto narrowed his eyes at the Jounin. Challenge accepted. Niji walked away from the market, supplies in hand. He did not know why Gai-sensei still insisted on completing D-ranks. They were carrying out regular C-ranks and training intently for the Chunin exams that were not that far away. He spouted something about youth and serving the village, but Niji was not convinced. He wondered if this was how Naruto felt. He understood now, D-ranks were indeed the worst. Speaking of the Uzumaki, Niji still had not seen him even around the village. He was more bothered than he had expected he would be. He had given up on Naruto returning to training and had settled for the techniques he had learned up until this point. He did not dare venture into the library nor ask his Jounin sensei for more. It would most definitely make its way back to his clan if he did that. Naruto was temperamental and unpredictable, but he had known his secrets were safe with the blonde. Naruto hated the Hyuga clan more than he wished to screw over Neji. It had been strangely dependable. He was still of the opinion that Naruto was the wrong in this whole situation. The blonde was far too childish, and the fact he appeared to have utterly abandoned training with Neji was one such example of his short-sightedness. Neji had not done anything to earn this treatment, and he knew he was not the only one who benefited from the joint training. Naruto's bloodline limit was formidable, and the applications of it in taijutsu were very different than the Byakugan, which made for productive training sessions when pitted against each other. The Byakugan relied upon chakra, so it was excellent in battles involving any form of chakra use, such as ninjutsu or genjutsu. It was also unparalleled in detecting chakra signatures, as long as they were within the limits of the vision field. It meant that Neji would never lose track of his opponent, and therefore could not be caught by surprise. Naruto's bloodline limit, which he refused to tell Neji the name of, had nothing to do with chakra. It involved seeing the minute details of movements, a muscle twitch, a bead of sweat, even a pulse. It even allowed him a wider field of vision, to a lesser extent than the Byakugan, but it was enough to cover most of his blind spots. One of the aspects of Naruto's bloodline limit that always caught Neji off guard was how the blonde could see Neji's center of gravity and manipulate it at will through his fighting style. These facts meant that Neji had yet to beat the blonde in a taijutsu fight. It was like he could see every movement Neji made before he had even moved. He knew Naruto was reading the twitches of his muscles and his changing center of gravity, but it did not make it any less frustrating. Neji was used to having a bloodline limit that allowed him to observe things that others had no hope of imagining, but having that turned on him was less than ideal. The Hyuga clan had always prided themselves on being the best at taijutsu for good reason. The combination of the Byakugan and their clan techniques were formidable and in close combat, nigh impenetrable. Naruto's own bloodline limit allowed him to find cracks in the Hyuga clan style. He knew every move Neji was going to make and always moved to perfectly counter it. It was less effective on ninjutsu than the Byakugan, but once, when Naruto had been in one of his better moods, he had explained that he could see the hand seals being made through the contractions of the muscles in the hands. It was not infallible. It depended on Naruto recognizing the pattern of hand seals in the first place. Gai-sensei really had been the perfect teacher for him. Neji knew those 2 extra years he'd spent with Gai-sensei would have really made a difference. Naruto was already suited to taijutsu, but Gai-sensei was a master of the art. He did sort of understand the jealousy and hostility towards his team. Losing the perfect teacher would have been difficult, but Naruto was taking it a step too far. He looked up and caught a flash of blonde. He activated the Byakugan and saw the very familiar chakra signature walking through one of the side streets. His feet were moving before he even had time to think, and he ran through the side street. His gaze locked on that signature. He caught up quickly and reached out to grab his arm. Naruto ducked away from him and twirled, kunai in hand. His blue eyes scanned him over before he relaxed. "Fuck, Neji. Don't sneak up on me." Naruto tucked the kunai back into his pouch. "Next time I might actually stab you." He was speaking as if it had not been weeks since they had last seen one another, as if he had not shirked his responsibilities and broken his word. "You are a coward, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto scowled, blue eyes narrowed. "The fuck you say?" Neji straightened, all the thoughts that had been building up spilling out as soon as he could form the words. "You are a coward," he continued firmly. "You are childish and petty and unreliable. Where the fuck is this coming from? Did you or did you not agree to teach me ninjutsu? I mean, yeah. Have you not abandoned that? Hey, I don't owe you anything." Naruto spat, his expression darkening. "I did you a fucking favor. I never said how long I would do it for." "No, but the reasons for stopping are stupid," Neji glared back. "You decided to throw a tantrum when you were removed from Gai-sensei's care and took it out on Lee. When things do not go your way, you throw a fit and avoid anything in connection with it. Do you not? Go fuck yourself," Naruto swore. "You are doing it now," Neji pointed out. "You need to get over yourself and realize that reacting in anger is only going to be detrimental in the long run." Naruto scoffed. "I don't want to hear that from you," he snarled. "Mister, I'm going to be angry at the world for things that I haven't even bothered to try to change. You walked around with a poor me attitude your entire fucking life, and you think you can get off judging me?" "I did," Neji admitted. "And you were the one to open my eyes. However, it is not any fault of mine that I remained with Guy and you did not. It is no fault of Tenten's or Lee's. Being angry with us accomplishes nothing. It is a petty, unfounded grudge. So what? What? So what if it's petty? Naruto narrowed his eyes. I don't owe you anything. It ain't my fault that you thought something more was going on here. I taught you some ninjutsu to piss off your clan. I couldn't give a shit about you as a person. So stop whatever shit you've got rolling around in that big head of yours that makes you think you can order me around. Neji met Naruto's eyes, a long silence passing between them. We're done, Naruto finally spat. He turned and walked away, calling out over his shoulder. Stay the fuck away from me. Neji sighed as Naruto vanished from view. That had not gone how he thought it would. He had underestimated Naruto's anger and pettiness. It was utterly pathetic. He had the capacity to be one of the strongest taijutsu masters of the village, but he hindered his own progress through his stunted view of the world. Neji did not owe the blonde anything, and he certainly didn't need him. It was none of his business if Naruto insisted on burning every bridge he'd ever made. All Neji had to do was keeping working towards his own goals. He was better off without him. Tenten threw her kunai up in the air, catching it and throwing it up again in a steady cycle. She didn't mind helping out in her family's shop, but when it was dead quiet like this, she wished she could be training instead. It felt like she was wasting time. She had so much that she wanted to do, and she could do none of it here. Lee's taijutsu was becoming really strong, and Neji was still the best of them by far. She didn't want to fall behind. She knew she was a lot stronger than she had been when she'd first joined Gai-sensei's team, but she wasn't satisfied. Gai-sensei always encouraged them to push their limits, and she was trying to do that every single day. Her weapon repertoire had grown significantly, and she felt so much more confident with both her close weapon combat and her aim. She felt she was taking real, tangible steps towards her dream of being the strongest weapons mistress in Konoha. The first fight with Naruto had stuck with her. It had been the wake-up call she'd needed. She knew that he didn't really acknowledge her existence, but that was fine. It didn't affect the impact he had made on her. He may be unapproachable and angry with their team right now, but that didn't change his strength or his dedication. He may not reciprocate, but Tenten was glad they had met. It had given her a shove in the right direction. The bell rang and she grabbed the kunai out of the air, plastering on her customer service smile. Good afternoon. How may we help you? Naruto stared back at her, an unreadable expression on his face. She hadn't seen him since he blew up at Lee at the mission assignment desk. I just can't get away from you fuckers, he muttered beneath his breath. Tenten felt the urge to ask but squashed it down. How are you, Naruto? She smiled. It's been a while. Naruto shot her a weird look. Tenten wasn't sure where to go from here. The last time she'd seen him was when they were being assigned the festival missions. She never did find out what he had against the Rinne festival. She also wanted to know more about why he was so angry at them, but she wasn't in a place where she could ask. They didn't know each other very well, and despite her desire to change that, it wasn't up to her. She had to respect the fact that Naruto wanted nothing to do with them. She knew her team had mixed feelings about Naruto, but she couldn't hold anything against him. It did bother her that he was so angry. Not in that she thought it was bad or anything, but in that she couldn't help but feel there was more to it. Naruto gave her the impression of a stray dog, furious and snapping at every hand offered. Not because it was truly bad or angry, but it had too many negative experiences to trust again. She knew he'd been treated badly by the villagers before. She'd overheard more than one person saying horrible things about him. The thing she couldn't figure out is why. Naruto was rude and uncooperative, but he was also super strong and a really hard worker. She still wanted to be someone in his corner. She had seen how fond Gai-sensei was of him, and although they had gotten off to a rocky start, Tenten could look back and see she handled the training situation wrong. She should have trusted Naruto to know his own limits. More importantly, she needed to push herself and have more confidence. She had never once seen Naruto or Gai-sensei doubt themselves, and it was something she wanted for herself. I'm sorry. Naruto looked up from where he was going through packs of shuriken. For back then, she smiled awkwardly, I should have trusted you, and I need to trust myself more too. It was a good training idea. Naruto looked back at her, but she couldn't read the look in his eyes. Whatever. He shrugged and went back to ignoring her. Tenten sat behind the counter, trying not to stare at the other genin. She didn't want to make him uncomfortable. A few minutes passed and she looked up at the sound of metal clanging against wood. Naruto had dropped a couple packs of shuriken and kunai onto the counter and she bounced up, ringing up the amount quickly. "Thank you." She bowed her head. "Please come again." She raised her head to see him already walking out the shop. She sighed, resting her chin on her fist. She wasn't sure if he believed her apology, but she felt better having offered it. She would just have to keep trying to show him that she was in his corner. Gai-sensei had always taught them never to give up after all. Naruto dragged his feet toward the meeting location. Kakashi had managed to detect his clones for every D rank so far, and it was fucking annoying. He couldn't figure out what was giving it away. The clones were identical and they acted just like him. Even the chakra signatures should have been the same. So how was Kakashi managing to figure it out every damn time? He knew Kakashi was a damn good shinobi, and while that was a good attribute for a teacher, it was really backfiring on him right now. So Naruto had been forced to actually participate in every D rank, and he was ready to burn the village to the ground. He used to do C ranks. This was such a step down from what he'd been doing before, and he hated it. He was capable of so much more than stupid D ranks, and yet, he had to accommodate for his teammates, and Naruto, you can't rush ahead without them. Kakashi could shove that up his ass. Every day he considered not showing up to the team meetups, but every day he did. Why wasn't that enough for him? His encounter with Niji a few days ago had already put him in a foul mood, and Tenten just confused him. He didn't know what her game was, but people didn't just apologize. Only Gai-sensei did that. He didn't trust it. Sakura had also been baffling, turning up every day and working quietly on her own. People didn't just change like that. She was up to something, and Naruto wasn't about to let his guard down just so she could show her true colors later. She wouldn't just stop being a fangirl overnight, and he did still catch her blushing at Sasuke occasionally. He hated this, he hated people. He just wanted to be left alone. He had better things to do than waste his thoughts on these people. He spotted Sasuke and immediately walked to join the other boy. At least Sasuke didn't annoy him. He was pretty sure if he was about to fall off a cliff and Sasuke walked past, he would ignore him, and it was all Naruto ever wanted. Sasuke knew he could handle himself, and Naruto reciprocated the thought. Sasuke wouldn't apologize or accost him in an alleyway or change overnight. Sakura hadn't arrived yet, and Naruto frowned. Despite the fact that they all knew Kakashi would be at least 3 hours late, Sakura insisted on turning up on time every day. He and Sasuke were up and about long before the meetup time, but they were usually off doing their own thing. A thought occurred to him. He spent more time around this team than Kakashi did. That was horrifying. It was good ammunition for next time Kakashi got on his case about shit. It was true, though, that he probably wouldn't be if Sasuke wasn't on the team. Kakashi didn't have to know that, though. "Are we early?" he asked. "I hate being early." "You're 10 minutes late," Sasuke shrugged. "Sakura hasn't turned up." Hope blossomed in Naruto's chest. Was this it? Had she finally given up and dropped out? It seemed too good to be true. He was distracted by the sight of a genin team walking towards them. "Are you Team 7? The Jounin sensei asked, her red eyes looking over them. She was pretty tall, with curly brown hair past her shoulders. She was wrapped in wide, white bandages, arranged to form a dress with a red shirt beneath, the wide billowing sleeves reaching her wrist. Her hitayate kept her hair out of her face, and her pale face was soft and unmarred by lines or scars. She couldn't have been older than Kakashi. The genin around her must have been around his age. The rough-looking kid whose fur-lined jacket had made it look like he was sporting a mane had symmetrical red triangles on each cheek, signifying his status as part of the Inuzuka clan. The small white puppy sitting on top of his head was also a dead giveaway. The other boy, taller than his counterpart, had his face mostly covered by the neckline of his oversized gray jacket, and his eyes were hidden by dark glasses. The final member, a small girl, was definitely a member of the Hyuga clan. Her pale lavender eyes were like a beacon to her clan status, but she seemed to lack the confidence that the Hyuga clan wore like a second skin. She wore a soft, pink hoodie, and her short navy hair framed her face. She didn't look up from the ground as they stopped in front of Naruto and Sasuke. "Who's asking?" Naruto crossed his arms over his chest. "You can't talk to Kurenai-sensei like that," the Inuzuka yelled, pointing an accusing finger. Kurenai, Naruto pondered. He hadn't heard that name before. He was pulled from his thoughts by Sasuke cuffing the back of his head. His hey was ignored as Sasuke rolled his eyes. "You don't have to be a dick to everyone, Dobe." Naruto pouted. Rich coming from this team. He remembered listening to Sasuke's complaints about his former classmates on many, many occasions. He had been a right dick and Naruto had fully supported him, then he turns on him like this? I take it Kakashi isn't here yet? Kurenai shook her head. Typical. Where's your other teammate? Don't know. Any idea at all? Nope. How do you not know? The Inuzuka piped up again and Naruto gritted his teeth. She's your teammate. Not my problem, he shrugged. It wasn't his job to keep track of her. We can ask Kakashi when he eventually turns up. Kurenai cuts in, warding off the brewing argument before it could begin. For now, you can come with us. This farming D rank is joint between our teams, so we can just get started. Naruto couldn't detect any signs of deception, and he knew some of the bigger D ranks were shared between teams, but he didn't like this unknown adult was ordering him around. How did he know that this was actually a joint mission? What if she was taking advantage of Kakashi's tardiness to rope them into some shit? You are so bloody paranoid. Sasuke shook his head. It's written all over face, Dobe. I do not know what you are talking about. Look, the sooner we do this D rank, the sooner we can actually do something useful, Sasuke pointed out. So just shelve the paranoia for now and get this D rank done so we can leave. And if this goes sideways? It's a fucking D rank, Dobe. What's your point? You are impossible. What the fuck? That last remark didn't come from either of them. They looked over to the other Genin team to see them staring. Naruto scowled back at them. What the fuck were they looking at? That's the most Sasuke's ever said. Like ever, the Inuzuka said, eyes still wide. Can't get him to shut up? Naruto nodded, smirking at Sasuke's venomous look thrown his way. Shut the fuck up, Dobe. Have you all met then? Kurenai broke in again, working overtime to keep the peace. We know Sasuke but not the blonde kid, the Inuzuka said, and was he the only person on the damn team to speak? What the hell was up with the other two? Well, we can introduce ourselves then. I am Kurenai, Jounin-sensei of Team 8. I'm Inuzuka Kiba, the boy said, pointing at himself with his thumb a little too proudly. Aburame Shino, the taller boy added, speaking for the first time. The Bug Clan. He did resemble the other members he'd seen about the village. The girl didn't speak and Kurenai gave her a little nudge. Hyuga Hinata, she whispered, Naruto barely catching it. She looked like a Hyuga, but she certainly didn't act like one. Naruto, he offered reluctantly. He hated introductions. They were always so full of false niceness and shit. Uchiha Sasuke, Sasuke said flatly, ending this nightmare. Okay, we better go see about this mission then, Kurenai said, smiling gently. I hope we can work well together. Kakashi may be an asshole most of the time, but Naruto couldn't help be glad he'd been assigned to him and not this lady. The whole kind vibe was sending a shiver down his spine. This is why he preferred assholes. They didn't try to hide their intentions or true thoughts, and they were usually upfront with stuff. Nice people, he could never tell what they were really thinking. The sooner this mission was over with, the better. Sakura jogged her way to her team's meeting point, shoving the pastry she'd picked up on the way out that morning into her mouth. It was weird to think that only a couple of weeks before she'd have fainted at the thought. She hadn't allowed herself something so high-carb in a long time, but after yesterday, she knew she had to make some changes. She'd been forcing herself to eat more since she started training for real. It hadn't been enough since she'd been forced to miss the farming D rank yesterday due to illness. Her family doctor had said she'd exhausted herself and need to either increase her calorie intake or cut down on the training. Losing time on training wasn't an option, so Sakura had agreed to snack throughout the day on top of her meals. It wasn't easy. Every bite she took felt like it was converting itself to fat, and she hadn't been able to stop checking her body in the mirror every day to make sure she wasn't becoming flabby. She knew it was a habit she had to break. She had to stop thinking of her body in terms of how skinny it could be and instead about how strong it was. If she had to put on weight to get stronger, that was what she would have to do. She knew that it would take a long time to train herself out of thinking like that. It was hard to break habits built over years. Being a kunoichi was a lot harder than she'd ever imagined. She'd thought she'd been ready when she graduated from the academy, but her team had given her a hell of a wake-up call. Sasuke-kun thought she was weak and Naruto didn't even think she was worth the time of day. She could tell that even Kakashi-sensei thought she was the weakest in the team. She didn't like it. She'd graduated at the top of her class in the academy, and she'd held that position with pride. She'd left that team meeting at first not knowing what she was going to do, overwhelmed by the negative thoughts crowding her mind. She slowly realized over the course of that day that she needed to show them that they were wrong about her. But it wasn't until she'd started training to show them all just how wrong they were about her that she realized that they were right. She was the weakest in the team. She struggled with exercises that Naruto and Sasuke could do without breaking a sweat. It was embarrassing. She'd been too ashamed to even greet Sasuke-kun in the mornings, and she avoided speaking to either of them. She just couldn't face them, knowing they were right. She hadn't a clue what being a kunoichi meant, and she'd taken the career so lightly. She had vowed to change things and become a team member that Sasuke-kun could respect. So he would look at her and see an equal he could fall in love with. It had taken him talking about her like that, but Sakura had finally realized that her looks didn't matter to Sasuke. He only cared about her strength and skill. It was mortifying to know that she had been focused on all the wrong things, but it wasn't too late. She may not have perfect hair or skin or clothes, but if she could show that she was strong, that she was working hard and could contribute to the team, then that would be enough for Sasuke to look at her and see someone who could support him. She didn't like Naruto, but she did want him to acknowledge her too. It was really, really hard. She was exhausted and her legs hurt and she had cuts all over her hands and she felt like she would never be clean again. She often wondered what she could have been able to do if she had started earlier, but that didn't help her now. She was learning that while getting fitter was a physical matter, it was more of a mental battle. She felt like stopping so many times and catching her breath, but she pushed herself to go that bit further and she always managed to do it. She could do this. Kakashi-sensei had given her a real training menu to follow and she diligently completed it every day, adding extra runs where she could. She was going to start looking into ways to improve her taijutsu next. It was what she saw Sasuke-kun practicing the most, so she figured that should be her next focus. The academy had put them through katas and spars a lot in their final years, but wasn't anything like what she saw Naruto and Sasuke-kun doing. They were way faster and hit way harder, and she didn't know how to achieve that. She should pay another visit to the library. Forehead. She stopped, looking over to the familiar voice. She hadn't realized she was passing Ino's family's flower shop, too lost in her thoughts. The other girl was standing out front, a basket of flowers in her hands. She was still as beautiful as when she'd last seen her. Long, silky blonde hair, clear skin, large pale blue eyes, a figure Sakura would kill for. She'd always been jealous of the way Ino looked. It was so unfair that she was just born like that. "Ino pig," she called back automatically. What happened? Ino walked toward her and Sakura could see real concern in her eyes. "You're a mess." "I've been training," Sakura shrugged, biting and swallowing the last piece of pastry. "You're on a team with Sasuke-kun." Ino scowled. "You're not going to win his heart looking like that. Do you have any idea how many calories that pastry has? Have you given up?" She smirked. "Are you finally admitting defeat to me?" Sakura looked at her for a long moment. In the academy, Ino had been her ultimate rival. She couldn't count the number of arguments and contests they'd had in an effort to prove themselves the better partner for Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun hadn't once acknowledged them, and Sakura had attributed it to the aloof, mysterious aura that made Sasuke-kun so cool. Now she had spent a couple of weeks with him. Seeing how he interacted with Naruto, it was so pathetically easy to see he truly hadn't cared. All those challenges, losing Ino as her best friend, it hadn't mattered. "I just realized that I need to grow up," she replied, ignoring the bait. "I'm a kunoichi now. Having perfect hair and makeup won't be any use on a mission if I can't back it up with real skills." Ino shot her a strange look. "What happened to you?" she demanded. "This isn't you. Sasuke-kun isn't so shallow that those things matter to him." Sakura met her gaze confidently. "He cares about strength, so I'm going to become strong. Not just for Sasuke-kun's sake, but mine too." She never wanted to feel like she had the day after the bell test ever again. She wasn't okay with being the weakest, but she could live with it as long as she knew she was working to change it. There were a lot of things outside of her control, but this wasn't one of them. "We're not academy students anymore, Ino," she said, shaking her head. "We're kunoichi. We need to start taking that seriously. I haven't given up on Sasuke-kun, but I now know there's a lot of other stuff I need to focus on. Sasuke-kun isn't going anywhere, and if I want him to look at me, I need to prove I'm strong enough to stand by his side." She looked up, cursing at the time. "Sorry, Ino, I have to go." She didn't wait for the blonde girl's reply as she resumed her jog. She had to hurry. She couldn't arrive later than Kakashi-sensei. Naruto tapped his foot as Kakashi explained the training exercise. The jounin had been 4 hours late this time, and while it had given Naruto extra time to work on his kenjutsu, It also delayed his plans for the rest of the day. He carried out most of his training outside of Team 7 hours, and this was taking a good chunk of time out of it. I am not doing that. All eyes turned to him. Naruto, this is not optional. This is ridiculous. He threw up his hands. I'm not doing it. It is just a training exercise. Kakashi tried to appease him, but Naruto would not be swayed. For newly graduated genin, he pointed out, I did this on my own like 3 years ago. This exercise isn't meant to be done alone. Naruto crossed his arms, glaring at Kakashi. He was not about to waste his morning doing a damn obstacle course. He was not opposed to the concept, but this particular course was a permanent fixture in Training Ground 2, and it was purpose-built for newly graduated genin to get used to traveling through terrain. They had the occasional survival trip in the academy, but that was more to learn the essential of camping than anything else. They wouldn't know the tree-walking technique at this point, so it was an appropriate level of difficulty. For them, Naruto had C-rank guard patrols that were more difficult than that course. It would be way too easy for Sasuke too. You've never done it tied to other genin. Yeah, because I don't need to be. Naruto shook his head. That course is meant to simulate traveling on missions. I don't know why the fuck I would be tied to my teammates on a mission. It's a team training exercise, Kakashi emphasized. Something you need a significant amount of work on. It's a waste of time. I know I can do it. Sasuke can do it. It would only be Sakura, and I ain't spending 2 hours getting dragged down by someone who can't pull herself up a wall. And if you were attached to Sakura by a rope and she fell, what would you do? Cut the rope, Naruto said as if it was obvious because it was. And Sasuke? Cut the rope. Naruto, you are on a team. You cannot just abandon your teammates whenever you feel like it. They should be able to look after themselves. If I cut the rope, I believe they will be able to save themselves. How is that being a bad teammate? And what if they didn't? What if they died? Naruto felt something twist in gut at the thought of losing Sasuke, but he squashed it. It didn't matter. It wasn't going to happen because Sasuke could handle his shit. He could see that there was something more to this for Kakashi, but Naruto wasn't going to compromise his training for whatever emotional baggage Kakashi was lugging around. It wouldn't be my fault that they can't look after themselves. Kakashi's eye twitched and Naruto could see his gray eye darkened in anger. He was really pissed off, but guess what, so was Naruto. This shit had been coming since they were placed on the same team. Their ideals were too different. What if it was you? They cut the rope on you. Good. I would figure it out. I ain't special. I don't expect to be treated any different. Kakashi sighed heavily. What do you want me to do? Carry her through the whole course? No, go at the slowest person's pace and assist each other. Like, goddamn, team. I don't see how that is any different than carrying her through the fucker. Naruto, Kakashi yelled, and Naruto could tell he was reaching his limit. He was quite impressed with himself. Kakashi was hard to ruffle on a good day, and he'd been dealing with Naruto for years. He couldn't get this kind of reaction out of him often, but he found he couldn't even enjoy it. When are you going to get it through your thick skull that you are a part of this team? Something in Naruto snapped. You think I don't know that? He spat. I know I'm stuck on this goddamn team. I turn up for training, I go on the stupid D ranks. I meet every single fucking obligation that is attached to this fucking team, but is that good enough for you? No. It's all, Naruto. Be nice to your teammates, or Naruto. Slow down, or Naruto. Hold yourself back for their sake. I didn't ask for this. I wanted to stay with Gai-sensei. Sasuke and Sakura had vanished from his view, and all he could see was Kakashi as he released all the rage that had been building up for the past couple of weeks. I am being forced on missions that are well below my skill level and training that doesn't even challenge me. The fucking Hokage decided that I should be put on this team because I can't be nice to civilians who hate my fucking guts and would kill me given half a chance. People from my class are fucking chunin. I'm not even allowed to sit the exam. And yet, I suck it up. I turn up every goddamn day and suffer through whatever half-assed training you offer, because you can't be bothered to turn up. He felt like he'd stalled, like he was stuck while the world moved around him. He had been a genin for so long, and it was stifling. He was sick of seeing the people around him move forward when he was forced to stay still through no choice of his own. What was even worse is that not only could he not move forward, he had been being forced backwards ever since joining this team. Why do I always have to be one to bend? It's not my fault I graduated early. I am doing my absolute fucking best to put up with shit and do productive training in my own time, but you go on and on about teamwork and depending on each other and making each other better, but that doesn't fucking apply here because I can't depend on anyone. Sakura is too weak and you're too busy trying to make us work together than to actually look and see what the fuck is going wrong. He used to be able to do what he wanted. He hadn't trained with Gai-sensei every day, but he could do C ranks that challenged him and training that he actually liked and generally exist in peace. At least on C ranks, he could occasionally leave the village. He didn't just lose Gai-sensei but all of that too. Nobody seemed to get that. They just assumed he was being rude and difficult because he was an asshole and not because he hated absolutely everything about his situation. That was the truth of it. He hated his life right now. He hated that he couldn't take the Chunin exams. He hated that he lost Gai-sensei. He hated that no matter how much he avoided them, the villagers still blamed him for shit that wasn't his fault. He hated that he'd lost his freedom. He hated that his choices had been taken away from him. He hated that no one would even acknowledge that fact he was fucking trying. If he really wanted to, he could miss every team meeting and mission and do his own thing. He would be punished by the Hokage, but that wasn't anything new. Fuck, he could leave the village. He wouldn't get far without the ANBU catching him. He knew that from when he tried when he was younger, but he could figure it out. He was a lot stronger than he had been when he was 4. He'd only decided to try and leave the village the legal ways when all of his attempts failed. I don't even know why I try. He threw up his hands. This is Naruto just being difficult, right? I'm the asshole who refuses to work in a team because I'm evil and horrible and difficult. Everything is my fault, right? Just ask the fucking villagers. I can't do anything right. He stopped, his chest heaving and his mouth dry as the silence weighed on the surroundings. He hadn't meant to say that much. Fuck, he didn't want to deal with this. Fuck this. Fuck everything. I'm outta here. He turned and ran from the training ground. No one called him back. Kakashi slumped further into the branch, the quiet rustling of leaves washing over him. He was pathetic. He was a terrible teacher and Minato-sensei would be so disappointed in him. How had he managed to get everything so wrong? He knew Naruto had his issues with teamwork and it had been something that Kakashi wanted to try and address. When he looked at Naruto, he saw himself before Obito died. He'd also been against having a team and he'd cared more about his own training and missions than he did Obito and Rin. He just didn't want Naruto to have to learn the lessons the hard way, like he did. There wasn't a day that went by when Kakashi didn't regret his actions and the attitude that led to the loss of his team. He didn't want it to break Naruto like it broke him. He hadn't really tried when Naruto was just his ninjutsu student. He hadn't wanted to overstep and Guy was doing a great job with him. He'd seen the changes in Naruto over his time as Guy's student, and while it wasn't all the way there, it had been leaps and bounds from the first day. When he'd been reassigned to Kakashi, he knew it was a chance to try and show the kid that having a team was a good thing. That they could support each other, help each other improve, that he could have allies to fall back on. It was a stroke of luck that he and Sasuke not only already knew each other but actually seemed to get along. He still didn't know how that had happened. He knew Sakura was one of the problems here. She was so far behind the boys and her attitude at first had been problematic. While he did not agree with the way it was done, he could already see the changes in Sakura. She was putting a lot more effort in and seemed less focused on Sasuke. She still wasn't ready for a C rank, but she was at least now heading in the right direction. Part of it wasn't her fault. She was from a civilian family. The only exposure she'd had to being a kunoichi was through the academy, and that was a tame, sanitized version to what the reality was. But was it really fair to hold the other two back for her sake? Naruto's words had been bothering him since their argument this morning, and he knew deep down that the kid was right. Kakashi hadn't acknowledged how hard everything had been for him and hadn't appreciated that Naruto really was trying in his own way. He hadn't missed a mission or training session even if his attitude towards Sakura still fell short. It wasn't what Kakashi had wanted from him, but that didn't change the fact that Naruto was making the effort. He'd seen the way the kid responded to other jounin he didn't like and Naruto didn't act that way with him. It was certainly not to the levels of admiration and respect he held for Guy, but Naruto did respect Kakashi, in his own way. He'd probably screwed all that up now, hadn't he? Naruto was right. It was unfair of Kakashi to ask him to slow down for his teammates. It was for the good of the team but to the detriment of Naruto. That wasn't fair. Naruto's wasn't willing to slow down and support his teammates, which had been Kakashi's main issue with him, but also hadn't seen things from Naruto's point of view. He couldn't rely on his teammates either since they were not strong enough yet, and why would Naruto allow them to rely on him if he couldn't do the same? Sasuke was advanced for a genin fresh out of the academy, even if he wasn't quite on the same level as Naruto yet, but he was still getting used to being a genin. And yet he couldn't throw Sakura and Sasuke into the deep end. That was a surefire way of getting them killed. He dropped his head back onto the tree trunk. How was he going to do this? He had to change the way he was doing things and try to be better, but how was he going to do that? All his genin were at different levels and they all needed different things, and working as a real team would be impossible until they were all at more similar levels. Did he abandon team training to focus on them individually? Would that be better for them as a team in the long run? How would that help them be a team though? It would put them on a level footing so they could work better on missions and team exercises, but would it make a difference to Naruto's viewpoint? He knew Naruto would still cut the rope even if they stronger, so that didn't help the whole try and get Naruto to see that teams are a good thing plan. And even if he trained them at levels appropriate for them, they would never get to similar levels as Naruto would keep improving. Sakura would never catch up. He was at a loss. He didn't know what he was going to do. All he did know was that things had to change. He couldn't drive Naruto away any further, and as it was, he didn't know if he would be able to repair the damage already done. Why did he think he would be a good Jounin sensei for them? He was a complete failure. He had failed his own genin team and now he was failing his students. He knew he hadn't put as much effort into being a Jounin sensei as he could have. He felt like if he actually tried, he would just screw things up even further. He wanted to be a good teacher like Minato sensei, but he felt stuck. He hated not knowing what to do and he didn't want to make the wrong choices. It was a bit late for that though. Apparently he'd already been making all the wrong choices. He needed to figure something out. He may be a failure, but these kids were his responsibility. It was time to stop running from that. He may make the wrong decisions, but he was doing that now. The worst had already happened. His fears were already becoming reality. How could he make things worse than what they already were? Things couldn't stay the way they were, and Kakashi vowed then and there to change. He didn't know how yet, but his team deserved better. Naruto deserved better. Naruto slammed the window shut, cursing the old bag beneath his breath. She'd made another ploy to kick him out and he was so fucking fed up with it. He paid his rent, he didn't make any noise, he kept his trash tidy, and he even cleaned the place. What more did she want from him? He had seen places kept in worse conditions during his D-ranks, and yet they didn't have their landlady trying to kick them out at any given opportunity. She'd said he was bad for business, and he had noticed that the apartments on his floor never stayed full for long, but he knew that had more to do with the building's tendency to lack hot water and electricity for days on end. He didn't even use his front door, so no one would even see him in the corridor. He knew the QB had killed her only son in the attack, but that didn't have anything to do with him. He took a breath of the crisp morning air, taking a moment to appreciate the quiet. He could almost imagine the village was completely empty. He didn't let himself linger for long, making his way across the rooftops. He would not be attending the training for Team 7 today, so he had to find somewhere Kakashi and Sasuke wouldn't think to look for him. Unfortunately, the pair of them knew him a little too well for his liking, although it was still nowhere near to the extent of Gai-sensei. He hopped down to the ground in one of the side alleys, heading out to the Hokage mountain. He had never been there with either of them, so it should be safe. He shoved his hands into his pockets, glaring at the ground as he walked through the empty streets. He wasn't sure what to do here. He'd said his piece and he'd meant every word, but that didn't actually change the situation. The Chunin exams were only a few months away, but he had no guarantee that Kakashi would offer up the other two to sit it with him, saying dumb shit like they weren't ready or something. He didn't think he could wait another year. He couldn't spend another year pissing his hard work up the wall just because the people around him were useless. Maybe it was time to consider leaving. He was much stronger than he was during his last attempt, and if he picked the right time and disguise, he could probably do it. He could leave one of his clones here to buy him some time too. He didn't know what he would do when he actually left, but he was sure he would figure it out. He could just go after bounties or something. He walked up to the cliff face and looked up and the cold, stone faces of previous Hokage. He didn't feel a connection to them, not like everyone else seemed to. The only things he would be leaving behind really was Sasuke, Kakashi, Hayate, Gai-sensei, and Ichiraka Ramen. Sasuke, Kakashi, and Hayate would be totally fine without him, and Gai-sensei had his new team to worry about. He would miss Ichiraka Ramen, but there was bound to be other ramen out there. He could spend some of his free time finding one just as good. Naruto-kun. Naruto jumped out of his skin and snapped around to stare at a grinning Gai-sensei. He hadn't changed from the last time he'd seen him. A perfectly symmetrical bowl cut, shining white teeth, and skin-tight green spandex. He quickly looked around but couldn't see any of his genin team. "Hi, Gai-sensei." Are you here to train, Naruto-kun? Gai-sensei grinned brightly. You were always a most diligent student. Yeah, Naruto agreed, not mentioning that he was here mainly to avoid people. Training was just a side benefit. You too. I am challenging myself to climb this mountain with one hand. Gai-sensei laughed. Kakashi and I had a challenge to do so, and I lost to my rival. So I must train to address my shortcomings. Naruto personally couldn't imagine Kakashi having the motivation to do that much physical labor. His happiness at seeing Gai-sensei dimmed at the thought of his new Jounin-sensei. Is everything all right, Naruto-kun? His head snapped up to stare at Gai-sensei. Was he that obvious? Gai-sensei had always been a little too good at reading him. Yeah, Gai-sensei. He brushed it off. Are we going to climb this, or what? Gai-sensei immediately lit up and Naruto blinked at his blinding smile. You are flourishing in your springtime of youth, Naruto-kun. How wonderful that you would join my training. Naruto couldn't hide his small smile at the man's antics. It was a breath of fresh air after the last couple of weeks. He needed this. He needed the uncomplicated approach that Gai-sensei had. A spoon was a spoon with Gai-sensei, and he would never hold back with his students. He would only encourage them to try harder. Race you to the top? He offered. Gai-sensei laughed. Of course, Naruto-kun. Naruto faced the wall and readied himself. Thoughts of Team 7 shoved to the back of his mind. He would need his full concentration for this, and for the first time since he'd left Gai-sensei's tutelage, he felt like he was actually doing something. He would think back on his plans to leave later, but for now, he would soak in the challenge and thrill that came with being Gai-sensei's student, if only for a short time. Sasuke flung the blanket off him and stomped to the front door, vowing to murder the asshole who dared knock incessantly at his door at this goddamn time of the morning. He'd never had visitors and didn't want to start now. He'd already had a shit week. D-ranks were every bit as awful as Naruto had always said they were, and after the blonde's blow-up at Kakashi, he'd been nowhere to be found, so Sasuke had been forced to suffer the team on his own. He had not liked it. He would never admit it aloud, but training was better with Naruto there. If Sasuke was going to choose anyone in this village to get stuck with, it was Naruto, so the fact the blonde had ghosted them all had put Sasuke in a foul mood. He swung the door open with growl, only to see the bane of his life standing there. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Dramatic much? Sasuke slammed the door in his stupid face. The knocking started back up again, and Sasuke stood in the darkness of his apartment, debating the merits of murdering his teammate. The moron ignored him all week and then turned up at his apartment in the middle of the damn night and called him dramatic? Come on, Sasuke. Let me in. Sasuke turned and dragged the door back open against his better judgment. Naruto barged in before he had the chance to speak, apparently unwilling to risk Sasuke slamming the door on him again. What the fuck, dope? It was then he noticed the packed duffel bag that Naruto had dumped on the ground. He met Naruto's eyes and hoped the blonde could read the murder in his eyes. Just hear me out. Naruto threw up his hands. Let me crash here for a couple days. And why the fuck would I do that? How much do you want the Katan Jutsu I promised? The super high-level forbidden ones that I may or may not have tracked down after Kakashi told me. No, that one time. Sasuke glared at him. He hated that Naruto knew him a little too well. The idiot wouldn't even use the jutsu himself, so why would he go looking for them? I want all of them. Naruto grinned back at him and Sasuke just continued glaring. Where the hell have you been? Naruto dumped his bag on the couch and proceeded to melt into Sasuke's couch. He was immune to Sasuke's glares, so he kicked the dobe for good measure. Come on, Sasuke. It's the middle of the night. Naruto groaned, flopping his head back. Can't we do this in the morning? Sasuke was this close to throwing him out the window. You're the one who turned up at my apartment in the middle of the fucking night, dobe, so you will answer or you will be sleeping in the forest of death. It wasn't like Sasuke would be getting back to sleep anytime soon. One blue eye opened and glared back at him. With a huff, Naruto straightened up and propped his chin on his hand while Sasuke crossed his arms, glaring expectantly. My landlady kicked me out, he said, rolling his eyes. Why? Because I'm me? Naruto spat bitterly. What other reason does she need? Sasuke frowned. He'd never understood what the villagers had against Naruto. He was an asshole and Sasuke frequently wished to smash his face into a tree, but he wasn't a bad person. As much as he annoyed Sasuke, He was also the only one Sasuke could trust to be straight with him and see him not for his Uchiha status, but as Sasuke. Naruto was an asshole, but Sasuke liked that about him. Not that he'd ever tell the dumbass. He always met Sasuke blow for blow and never took it easy on him. He'd never seen anything that justified Naruto's treatment by the village. Naruto also went out of his way to avoid any and all villagers, so he wasn't sure what they had against him. "That's shit," he replied, not sure what else there was to say. Naruto huffed a laugh, staring at the ceiling. "I don't know if I can do this anymore." Alarm bells started ringing in Sasuke's head, and he leaned forward abruptly. "What?" Naruto looked at him and laughed. "I'm not going to off myself," he chuckled, although the sound was hollow. "That would mean Konoha wins and I would burn down the village before I let them win." Sasuke leaned back slowly. He was more than familiar with Naruto's sentiments about Konoha, but he'd never heard the blonde sound so serious about it before. "Would you hold it against me if I left?" Sasuke blinked. "Where the hell did that come from?" "I'm leaving," Naruto announced, as if he was talking about the forecast. "Not tonight, but soon." Sasuke wished he could be more surprised by the sentiment, but it made a lot of sense. Naruto wasn't happy here, and his response to conflict with people was to run. The fight with Kakashi might have pushed him too far. "Okay." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Nothing to say?" "What is there to say?" Sasuke shrugged, dumping himself into one of his armchairs. "You're the most stubborn mule I know, so if you've decided to go, you'll go. You get why, right?" Sasuke shrugged again. "Would you ever leave?" "Why would I do that?" "You're not going to beat Itachi by staying in the village." Sasuke snapped towards his teammate, a snarl in his throat. What the fuck did he know about Itachi? Itachi had been ANBU. He'd gotten strong in the village, so why wouldn't Sasuke? Naruto put his hands up in a placating gesture. "I'm not saying you can't kill him. I'm just asking if you're sure you're going to get strong enough here with Team 7? He continued, dropping his hands. "Itachi was ANBU, sure, but the village is holding you back to the same level as your peers, not your actual abilities. They did it with me too. You weren't allowed to graduate early, right?" Sasuke was about to snap something back, but he stopped, considering. Kakashi-sensei had been better with training since the fight with Naruto, but it was still nowhere near what Sasuke wanted. He trained until he bled when he came home at night, and if it wasn't for Naruto bribing him with powerful jutsu in the academy, he would be severely lacking in those two. Kakashi-sensei has been better about training recently. How would leaving the village benefit me? Naruto grinned, light entering his eyes for the first time since he'd barged his way into Sasuke's apartment. "It's a big world out there, Sasuke. I've seen it on C ranks. We could do whatever we wanted out there and no one would be able to hold us back. We'd have to disguise ourselves for a while, but we could collect bounties or something." Sasuke didn't know. Naruto had made some good points, but he didn't know if leaving the village would make him any stronger. Here he had teachers and access to jutsu, but outside the village, he would have nothing. "Look, I just wanted to mention it." Naruto looked away. "You're way better than this village, Sasuke. You don't owe them anything." That was the closest Naruto had ever come to a real compliment, although considering how he felt about Konoha, it wasn't exactly a high bar. "I'm not going anywhere, for now," he answered. "When are you planning on leaving?" "Our first C rank," Naruto replied immediately. He must have been thinking about this for a while. "We always leave the village for that one, and there has got to be some chance to ditch Kakashi." "What about Guy?" "He has his own team to worry about now." Naruto scowled and Sasuke rolled his eyes at the jealous ass. "You're not going to tell anyone?" "That's a stupid question." A brief pause. "Thanks, Sasuke. Go the fuck to sleep, dope. You're coming to team training tomorrow." "But..." Sasuke abandoned him, walking back into his bedroom and slamming the door. The dobe had so many issues he could probably put a Yamanaka into a damn coma. He was paranoid, antagonistic, chaotic, smug, and responded with any emotional confrontation with instant, irrational anger, and then proceeded to avoid the person like the plague. He was one dysfunctional bastard, and he was the only person in the village that Sasuke genuinely liked. If the sandal was on the other foot, Sasuke realized that he would go to Naruto too. He wasn't sure how to feel about that. Naruto was a good person to have in his corner anyway. He was strong, clever, and fought dirty. He'd never seen anything come between Naruto and his goals before. He pushed Sasuke to be better and go further. He didn't know how things would change when the dobe left, but as the sunrise began to touch his window, he decided that it was a problem for the future. He could probably still get a couple of hours if he fell asleep now. Kakashi looked down from the trees, something loosening in his chest at the sight of 3 genin waiting for him. He hadn't tracked Naruto down during the week he was missing, having known the blonde long enough to know that that would only push him further away. He still wasn't sure what he was going to say. Did he appear and act as if it had never happened? Did he take Naruto aside and apologize? That wouldn't work. Naruto didn't believe in words. Kakashi could tell Naruto that things were going to change until he was blue in the face, but none of it mattered unless he actually showed his student that he had heard and acknowledged what he'd said. He popped onto the training ground, waving a hand. "Yo! Are you on time?" Sakura frowned at him. "Are you sick or something?" "We have a lot of training to do, so I wanted to get a jump start on it," Kakashi replied cheerfully, desperately ignoring the venomous aura from Naruto. "Sakura, I've increased your physical fitness menu, so go get started on that." Sakura just looked at him warily for a long moment, before moving slowly to follow his instructions. He was still half an hour late. Should she really be so suspicious? "Sasuke, I got those weights so you can continue working on your speed. Your elemental affinity is Raiton, so we should take advantage of that." He handed over the scroll to his student, catching the looks that he was sending to Naruto. He couldn't decipher them, but Sasuke soon abandoned them both to go work on his own fitness course. Kakashi looked at his final student, but Naruto wouldn't meet his eyes, just staring angrily at the ground. This was Kakashi's fault. He'd failed his student and lost his trust. "We're stepping up your bloodline limit training." Naruto still didn't look at him. "I spoke to Guy about an appropriate menu for you." There was a twitch at the mention of the other jounin. "Your taijutsu is easily high chunin level, and your ninjutsu could blow most chunin out of the water with your reserves alone. You've managed to keep up with the speed of your bloodline limit recently, so now we need to grow both together." There was nothing he could say to fix what he broke, but he would show Naruto that he had listened. "Your teammates won't be able to keep up with you, so we'll work on it separately for now," he continued. "It might be good for you to spar with Sasuke occasionally since he is also training his body for speed, but we can see how it goes." Naruto shoved his hands into his pockets, but he nodded in acknowledgement. That was more than Kakashi was expecting to get out of him at this stage. "Do you have anything you want to work on?" he asked directly. The kid shrugged, and Kakashi accepted that was as much as Naruto would give him right now. That was okay. Kakashi fully intended to fix things. He may never be able to regain that trust, but he could at least do right by his student starting now. Shikamaru sighed at the sight of Team 7 approaching. They were half an hour late, which Asuma-sensei hadn't been bothered about in the slightest, so Shikamaru was forced to listen to Ino whine about waiting around and the audacity of Sakura on making her wait. Chuji was on his last bag of snacks and starting to look worried. Something had happened with the Yamanaka recently, and she had yelled at them during training a lot louder than usual. He'd seen her training much harder than before, and she only mentioned Sasuke a couple of times a day. It was a massive difference from the 10 times an hour they'd had before. He had no idea what inspired this change in his female teammate other than the fact it had involved Sakura in some way. He was still under the impression that they were bitter rivals over their precious Sasuke-kun, and Ino hadn't told them otherwise. It was damn troublesome. She'd nagged too much before she'd gotten the whole training thing in her head. He didn't know how this was going to go. He hadn't seen Sasuke or Sakura since graduation, and he didn't know about their third teammate. It was someone from the Genin forces who'd graduated a while ago, and Shikamaru wondered how they were faring with Sakura. Unlike Ino, she had the object of her obsession well within reach. Sasuke wasn't any easier to work with, preferring to work solo as much as he could physically get away with, so Shikamaru wasn't sure how their team dynamic was going to be. While he was glad they'd finally turned up and Ino would finally stop whining, he was sure this mission would be a drag. He wasn't sold on Ino, but her alone was way better than whatever baggage Team 7 was going to drag in with them. "You're early, Kakashi," Asuma-sensei called out, causing his team's heads to snap to him in disbelief. "I told you the meeting time only an hour earlier than the real time." Asuma, I have to keep you on your toes," the other Jounin-sensei called back. He was pretty tall, with spiky gravity-defying silver hair and his face mostly hidden by a slanted Hitai 8 and a black face mask that covered from the bridge of his nose to beneath his Chunin vest. He was slouched over and everything about him screamed, relaxed. His genin trailed behind him. Sasuke looked exactly the same as he had in the academy, scowl and all. Sakura had changed a little. She wore her long pink hair up into a high bun and wore a practical red battle dress with black leggings beneath. It had dirt smudged on it, which was something Shikamaru didn't think he'd ever see on Sakura. She'd been insane about looking her best for Sasuke-kun. The third genin was the one who caught his attention. He recognized him. It had been a few years, but it was definitely the boy from the Nara forest back then. He'd had a deer rank to round up the deer for their vet checkups and struggled with the last few fawns. He hadn't changed much. Still in black shinobi trousers tied with bandages at the bottom, his black sandals and sleeveless black shirt. The bandages were a shade of orange, which was new. Black fingerless gloves and black bracers to his elbow covered his thin, defined arms, and he was wearing his loose sleeveless orange hoodie this time. He was shorter than both Sakura and Sasuke and had recently shaved down the sides of his head, leaving the blonde spikes a bit longer on the top. He also had 2 swords strapped to his back that he didn't have before. Why was he with them? He'd told Shikamaru he was an apprentice, which meant he didn't have a team. Forehead, Ino yelled out, pointing accusingly at Sakura. Hi, Ino pig. Sakura waved back calmly and Shikamaru blinked. That wasn't what was supposed to happen. What had that Jounin-sensei done to her? Right. Asuma-sensei lit up another cigarette. We should head out to the farm. There's a lot to do and we have until sunset. Shikamaru remained lying on the grass, shifting his gaze back to the lovely clouds floating by. He didn't like deer ranks, and he especially didn't like ones that involved a lot of manual labor like this one. It wasn't often that it took more than one genin team to get a deer rank done, but the ones involving the farms were infamous for it. They were just too damn big. It was such a drag. Change of plans, Kakashi announced brightly. I'll take Sakura, Sasuke, and your cute little genin for this mission, and you work with Naruto on his futon techniques. He needs some help applying it to his kunai, and you're the best in Konoha. I'm the only one in Konoha, you mean? Asuma blew out a puff of smoke. Hey, why does he get to skip the stupid mission? Ino snapped, crossing her arms and staring furiously at the blonde genin. Naruto, Shikamaru remembered, glared back at Ino, and his blue eyes were just as hostile and grumpy as they had been back in the forest. He couldn't imagine the guy ever smiling. Naruto has been a genin for a few years now, and deer ranks are a waste of his time. He's done enough of them, Kakashi answered, seemingly unfazed by Ino's response. Hayate's working with him on his kenjutsu, but he needs more control over his futon, which is more your territory. Naruto looked just as surprised as Asuma-sensei about this turn of events. Wary blue eyes turned to Asuma-sensei. I mean, if you're happy with that, Asuma-sensei shrugged, letting out another puff of smoke. Kakashi is more than capable of overseeing the deer rank on his own. Naruto didn't look convinced. This is such a drag, Shikamaru sighed. He didn't want to pick up the slack of losing a person. Naruto's gaze turned to him, and there was a spark of recognition, although the blonde kept quiet. Come now, children. Kakashi began waving his arms, and Shikamaru reluctantly stood, shoving his hands into his pocket. We have a lot to do, and we're running late. That was your fault, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura spoke up. Let's go. Kakashi ignored her, pulling out an orange book from a pouch and immediately sticking his nose into it. No time to waste. Sakura rolled her eyes and Sasuke stomped ahead, his mood by some miracle being even worse than usual. Shikamaru fell into step beside Chuji as Ino bounded forward to start harassing Sakura. He looked back to see Naruto and Asuma-sensei staring at each other, although he couldn't read their expressions from here. Whatever, it wasn't any of his business, and he had enough to think about with this stupid deer rank. What he wouldn't give to just ditch them and go stare at the clouds somewhere, but then Ino and his mother would be on his case, and one was bad enough. Being a shinobi was so damn troublesome. Lee bounced along the road, his beloved teammates not far behind him. It was such a beautiful day for training. He was so blessed to have been placed on a team with Gai-sensei. He felt like a completely different person than he had been only a year ago, and it was all due to his sensei and power of youth. He was determined to make his teacher proud and show him that Lee could uphold the legacy of youth. He was lucky to have his teammates too. Tenten was much more confident than she had been when they were first assigned to a team together, and while Niji had not gotten any friendlier, he worked hard and met Lee with the same intensity and determination that Lee did. It truly felt like they were becoming rivals, like Gai-sensei and his rival, and Lee was over the moon. He would have to continue to work hard and show that the power of taijutsu was more than enough to compete with any opponent Lee faced. Guy-sensei said he would be running late. Lee, Tenten called out from behind him. There's no reason to rush. We must get there early so we can appropriately warm up, he called back, turning so he was walking backwards. Niji remained silent. Lee had noticed that he had been unhappier recently, but he could not think of a cause to his teammates' suffering. Niji was so strong and Lee was honored to be his rival, but there was a weight on Niji's shoulders that he refused to talk about. It was not Lee's place to ask about it, but he could at least be there for his rival if he ever wished to share the burden. Is someone already there? He turned to look into the training ground and grinned as he watched Naruto swing a sword, the metal cutting through the rock in front of him like it was butter. He had seen the pair of swords strapped to Naruto's back, but he had not seen them in use before. He had not appeared to notice their arrival, and Lee resisted the urge to call out, knowing the blonde would stop the moment he did. Naruto was someone he looked up to a lot. He was the first to inspire Lee, long before he was assigned to Guy-sensei. He told Lee that he should never give up. If he cannot use chakra, then he should work hard and find alternative ways of fighting. He had not expressed it in those exact words, but Lee understood the feeling behind them. Naruto was the hardest work that Lee had ever had the privilege to work with, even beyond himself and his teammates. Lee could only aspire to work as hard and become as strong as Naruto. The match from when they first formed their team was still fresh in his mind, and he knew he still had a long way to go before he could properly challenge Guy-sensei's first student. Naruto was not the friendliest shinobi, but Lee did not see that as a negative. Naruto preferred to show his strength through his actions rather than his words, and that only made Lee admire him more. Naruto was not a man of wasted words. He was a pillar of strength, and Lee would win him over one day with his own strength. He just had to keep working hard until the day he could meet the genin on equal footing. Naruto's dismissal of him did hurt sometimes, but Lee knew that Naruto's trust was not easily won. He was willing to work hard and prove himself worthy with the power of youth. How can a sword cut through rock like that? He asked Tenten, assuming that she would know. Would it not break? Futon, breathed Tenten, her brown eyes sparkling. Those with an affinity can apply to the edge of blades to make them sharper, but it's not common in Konoha. My family's shop has only made chakra-conducting blades for one jounin before. Lee turned back, but he couldn't see anything special on the blade. Naruto was incredible. He could have just focused on kenjutsu, but he pushed himself a step further, just like he did every time. Naruto is truly in the springtime of his youth. Lee grinned as Naruto's head snapped towards them. What are you doing here? He growled, sheathing the sword as they approached. Guy-sensei told us to meet him here for training, Tenten explained, her eyes still on the blade that was now being slung across Naruto's back. Where did you get those? I stole them. Lee could not tell if he was serious or not. The blonde's face was blank and his response was completely deadpan. Tenten did not appear to know how to respond to that either. You should not expect a civil response from him, Niji spoke up for the first time. He cannot get past his own pettiness to attempt a normal conversation. Naruto scoffed. Rich coming from you, he sneered. You can't go a fucking sentence without putting someone down for your own ego. Tension bubbled between them, and Lee was not sure what the right approach was. It was evident that something had transpired between the two when Lee and Tenten had not been present, but Lee could not think of anything that could cause this level of animosity between two comrades. Do you wish to join us in training today, Naruto-kun? Lee tried. He did not expect the blonde to agree, but he knew he could never give up on trying to reach out to the blonde. Guy-sensei will be along shortly, and he would be thrilled to see you. I would rather die. Such commitment. Lee grinned, deciding that he would only try and take the positives out of this, just like Guy-sensei did. I will have to keep working hard for your acknowledgement then. Naruto stared at him for a long moment before shaking his head. Whatever, knock off. He turned on his heel and stalked out of the training ground. Lee grinned. Naruto's temper had not sparked, and he had not threatened Lee even once. That was progress. He was still not willing to engage with them, and he and Niji appeared to be on terrible terms, but he could feel like he was one step closer to his goal of taking on equal footing with Naruto and winning his trust. One day, he would be able to count the blonde among his friends, and together they could blossom into their springtime of youth. Naruto carefully ran the oiled cloth over the metal, avoiding the sharpened edge. He was finally starting to feel like the blades were becoming an extension of himself, just like Hayate-sensei said they should. The sword gleamed in the early morning sun and fresh spring air curled over his seated form as he worked on his weapons. He tried to spend as little time in Sasuke's flat as possible, knowing his teammates' patience wouldn't last forever. He was still surprised that he let him stay past one night, but he wasn't willing to push it. He wasn't going to spend his saving on an inn, and with the occasional rain showers, he also didn't fancy sleeping in the forest. He was full capable, he had all of his camping equipment for missions after all, but he would be too on guard to sleep properly, and it was just a hassle he didn't need right now. He only really went to Sasuke's to sleep, but the arrangement was working. It was actually working a lot better than he thought it would. He'd always thought he would hate sharing space with someone else, but Sasuke was quiet and tidy, and they only spoke to talk about training or shinobi-related stuff. He didn't try to pry or make Naruto spill his guts, and that was all he wanted. He dumped some tomatoes into Sasuke's fridge every so often and cleaned up after himself, so he supposed that was enough to keep Sasuke from kicking him out. He hadn't told Kakashi about his change of address, and he hadn't registered it with the records department either. No one had come looking for him, and Sasuke wouldn't say anything, so it was a non-issue. He didn't see the point in trying to find a new place when he was going to be leaving soon anyway. He'd organized his gear and his savings with storage scrolls, so his entire life currently fit into one rucksack. Whenever they finally got a C rank out of the village, he was ready. There wasn't really anything left for him in the village anyway. Gai-sensei had his team. Sasuke had his whole kill his brother ambitions. Kakashi would have one less student to worry about. Hayate-sensei wouldn't be that bothered since they hadn't known each other that long. He no longer had a landlady to worry about, and he didn't have roots with any part of the village. The villagers would probably hold another festival when they found out he was gone. The old man would be pissed and send the ANBU after him, but the risk was worth it. He was suffocating in this place. He didn't belong here, and there was a whole world out there to explore. The short time he'd spent in the capital during his own first C rank had never left him, and every opportunity he'd gotten to leave the village had only fed his desire to see what was out there. A world where nobody cared who Uzumaki Naruto was or about his past. He took the cloth off the blade and inspected it carefully. The metal was designed to be able to tolerate chakra, and since Asuma had shown him how to generate futon blades, it had quickly become his new obsession. His bloodline limit worked well with Kenjutsu, and this was just a sharper, deadlier version of Kenjutsu. He hadn't been sure about Asuma at first, but the man was even more laid back than Kakashi, and he didn't try to abuse his authority or anything. He taught Naruto what he needed to know and left him to it. He liked that in a teacher. He hadn't shown Hayate-sensei yet, knowing that the man would tell him that he had improved his basic skills first and master the foundation before he went adding shit. He'd gone through this before with Kakashi and adding ninjutsu to his taijutsu, but he would rather practice it now so it was usable for when he struck out on his own. Kakashi had been better recently about the training, but Naruto couldn't bring himself to fully trust it. He was being allowed to train more to his actual level, and he was no longer forced to go on D ranks with his teammates. Sasuke had made it a point to let Naruto know how stupid D ranks were every evening, and Naruto shared his own horror stories, from when he had to do them alone with Gai-sensei. Kakashi had also stopped the teamwork exercises, which had been a huge relief to Naruto, but he couldn't help but feel it wouldn't last. Something would come up to ruin it all. Whether it was being barred from the Chunin exams yet another year or Sakura never managing to reach a level where they could work effectively as a team, he didn't know. He just knew this couldn't last. Kakashi was trying. He had to give that to the man. He'd trained with him for a long time and he knew him well. This teamwork thing was always going to explode in their faces, and Naruto was no closer to whatever Kakashi wanted from him. He was never going to be what Kakashi wanted him to be, and that made it even easier to leave. Oi, dope! Naruto peered over the edge to see Sasuke glaring at him. Good morning to you too. We're going to be late. What a travesty. How will Kakashi ever forgive us? You agreed to lightning tag yesterday, remember? We can't do that around Kakashi-sensei. Naruto blinked. He'd totally forgotten about that. Since Sasuke had started training his Raiten affinity, he'd gotten a lot faster. It was something that Naruto also needed to train, so they'd come up with lightning tag. It was essentially Sasuke chasing him to electrocute him with Raiten jutsu and Naruto practicing evasion and using his futon chakra to shield the parts of his body Sasuke was targeting. It had been a rough learning curve at first, but it was great training. They weren't sure if Kakashi would allow it, especially since there were a lot of injuries at first, so they just did it before he got there. Might as well take advantage of their teacher's chronic lateness. Sakura had started turning up only half an hour before Kakashi, working on her own training somewhere else, so they had plenty of time to do their own thing. Fuck, he swore, sheathing the blade and slinging both on his back. You still owe me a new pair of pants for last time. You should have dodged. That's not what you said when I shredded your jacket. That's because I'm meant to tag you, not the other way around. You got way too close. Next time don't land on me. Naruto followed the other genin down the side of the building, bickering all the way down. There might be some things he would miss about Konoha. Naruto crossed his arms, tapping his foot on the wooden floor as they waited to receive their mission. They should have had a C rank by now. It had been a few months since graduation and he was itching for a mission. Every day in Konoha felt like another day for someone to figure out his plans and keep him in the village permanently. Next is Team 7. We have a painting mission, gardening, babysitting. No way. Naruto stepped forward, holding the Chunin's gaze. It was the guy that accused him of stealing the forbidden scroll, with the scar across his nose. It had been a shit night, and after being rightfully cleared by the interrogation unit and flipping the Chunin the bird, he'd had to go back out and find the stupid cat. He did not have fond feelings for this Chunin, and he was not about to put up with this bullshit. Give us a C rank. Naruto, Kakashi started. No, Kakashi. Naruto whirled around to glare at the Jounin sensei. We've been doing dumbass D ranks for months. We're ready for a C rank. I know you are, Kakashi sighed. Sasuke could beat half the Chunin in the village and Sakura is not as useless as she was when she graduated. Naruto continued. We are all ready for this, so just fucking let us. Kakashi blinked. Naruto knew what he'd said could be taken as the first and only compliment he'd ever given his female teammate, but C ranks weren't that hard. Even Sakura should be capable of making it back alive. I guess we're going on a C rank then, Kakashi smiled. Okay then. Naruto nodded, not sure what to do now. He'd expected more of a fight. Can I say something? Naruto frowned. He didn't think the Chunin got an opinion on this. I just wanted to apologize to you, Naruto, Irika continued. I made assumptions that day that were unfair. I promised to try and be better in the future. I haven't seen you since then, so I wanted to take this chance to apologize now before you head out of the village. Naruto froze, not sure what to do here. Why the fuck the guy would even apologize was escaping him, and he wasn't sure what to say in return. It was unlikely that Irika meant it. The question was why even do it at all? Here, Irika handed Kakashi a scroll, stealing a look at a silent Naruto. You will escort Tazuna, a bridge master, back to his home in the land of waves. It should take about a week to get there, so prepare for 2. The rest of the information is in the scroll. Naruto grinned. This was it. This was his chance. Sasuke shot him a look, but he ignored it. Let's go then. Naruto clapped his hands. Where is this guy? The door behind them slammed open and Naruto watched an old guy stumble in. The stench of alcohol was almost overwhelming. He clutched a brown bottle in one hand as he leaned the other on the doorframe. Bleary, dark eyes glared at them over the rim of thin, wire glasses, and his gray beard did nothing to hide the sneer he sent their way. His olive tunic was disheveled, barely tucked into loose tan trousers. What's this? It's just a bunch of darn squirts, he slurred. You're so tiny. Are you really Shinobi? Naruto clenched his fists but kept his opinion to himself. He couldn't afford to lose this mission, even if he had to put up with this pathetic geezer. I can assure you that there are wonderful Shinobi, Kakashi replied cheerfully. They are more than capable of protecting you. The short one looks like he would rather stab me. Tazuna waved a bottle in Naruto's direction. That's just what his face looks like. Naruto scowled, unimpressed. We can meet in front of the front gates in half an hour, Kakashi continued. You guys know what to pack. Naruto took the chance to leave, Sasuke and Sakura not far behind him. He could do this. He just had to put up with the old man long enough to find an opportunity to slip away. A smile found its way back onto his face as he realized this could very well be the last time he would step foot in Konoha. He had to do this. This would be his best chance to finally escape the village once and for all. Sakura hefted her backpack to rest more comfortably on her shoulders. They'd been walking for days now. Konoha long faded behind them and she'd finally begun to relax. She'd been so nervous. Leaving the village for the first time and on a C-rank mission too. She wasn't sure if she was ready for it, but she couldn't speak up and let her teammates down. She was more than aware that she was the weak link in this team, and while she had been working hard to try and change that, she knew she still had a long way to go. Her physical training was paying off, at least as she'd been able to keep up the whole time. They were walking a civilian pace due to Tazuna-san, but she didn't feel very tired and knew she could probably keep walking all night too. It was nice to see her training finally show itself after so many grueling hours of working on her own. She's also expected a mission outside the mission to be more exciting. It had been day after day of walking and the scenery was starting to blend together. She knew she was supposed to be on alert as part of the bodyguarding mission, but it was hard to maintain that after days of nothing. The most entertaining thing had been watching Naruto hold himself back from lynching the bridge builder, who'd done nothing but drink and complain the entire journey. It was actually quite nice to see his ire directed at someone else, especially since she had also grown tired of listening to their client whine. Did the scroll say we had to deliver him alive? Naruto hissed beneath his breath. That's a given on a bodyguarding mission, dobe, Sasuke-kun muttered back, although he didn't look happy about it. I would help hide the body, she offered, smiling awkwardly as the two boys looked at her. Naruto's blue eyes watched her for a moment before he nodded slightly, his eyes turning back to the road. It was such a minor thing, but Sakura couldn't help the glow of pride. It hadn't been easy to get Naruto to acknowledge her, and he still hadn't really, but she could tell that he respected her efforts and training. Despite first impressions, Naruto wasn't a mean or malicious person. He didn't suffer fools and would not tolerate someone who tried any less than their best. It had taken some time for Sakura to see that. She was actually sort of grateful to him. He had pushed her in a way the academy and her teachers never had, and she could feel the difference in herself. She had by no means given up on winning Sasuke-kun's heart, but she'd realized that Sasuke-kun valued strength above everything else. She suspected it was why he and Naruto got on so well, although she knew that they'd known each other for much longer than they would admit. It made her feel like the odd one out. They trained together, leaving her out, and it was frustrating. She felt like she couldn't ask to join. She would just slow them down as she was now. It was a weird combination of feelings. She often found herself wishing she'd put in more effort in the academy. She was the top kunoichi, but she knew it was her paper test scores that had pushed her into that position. She was passable in the practical shinobi arts, but knowing what she did now, she'd barely scratched the surface back then. She had never pushed herself enough. It was hard, but she was trying to make up for it now. Their team dynamic had settled into something that wasn't uncomfortable, like it had been in the first few weeks. Sakura knew that her teammates didn't see her at the same level, but they didn't put her down or tell her she couldn't do it. Naruto wasn't nice about it, and Sasuke generally didn't acknowledge her existence, but she knew they accepted her efforts. It wasn't anything like she'd imagined her team when she'd been in the academy, but there was still time. So how did you two actually meet? Sakura asked. You've never actually said. I told you, Naruto replied, appearing as bored as her. I didn't drop him off a building. He answered her, without any reluctance or insults. He must be more bored than she thought. Like you could have if you'd tried. Sasuke-kun rolled his eyes. I took you up that building and I was more than capable of throwing your ass off. Naruto retorted, but it was more playful than anything. She wasn't sure she'd ever seen that from him before. You were only a baby academy student back then. You're younger than me, dobe. What's your point? Sakura watched the exchange, things even less clear than they were before. She may never get to the bottom of this. She stepped over the puddle absent-mindedly, frowning at the ground. Would her teammates ever let her in? How hard did she have to work before she was seen as one of them? They'd only taken a few more steps before there was a splashing sound behind them. She started to turn and only managed to catch a glimpse of two figures dressed in black before a long, spiked chain wrapped around Kakashi-sensei, trapping him in place. Two foreign shinobi held the ends of the chains out of matching metal gauntlets, and Sakura's heart leaped into her throat as they pulled. Blood splattered onto the road as their teacher was torn apart with a horrifying squelch, and Sakura felt the burn of bile in the back of her throat as she stared in horror. The two shinobi barely paused as they flung themselves towards Naruto. The chain held between them to capture her teammate, just like they had Kakashi-sensei. Naruto looked unfazed by their teacher's death and had already drawn his dual blades when she hadn't been looking. It was the calmest she'd ever seen him. There was no scowl or frown and sneer, just focused blue eyes that tracked the deadly chain closely. Naruto suddenly swung one of his swords into the chain and rammed it into one of the trees next to the road, the blade and chain sinking more than halfway into the thick trunk. It caught the enemy Nin off guard as they were suddenly pulled to a halt, the chain pulled taut and pulling them off balance. Sakura barely had time to blink before Sasuke suddenly appeared, landing on their shoulders. She watched as he gripped their arms, kicking back into their faces. The chain detached from their gauntlets and they dove to either side. Sasuke landed gracefully into crouch where they'd been stood only a moment ago. Her gaze was torn from her crush when the enemy Nin flanked and ran towards her. She pulled a kunai from her pouch, assuming a defensive stance in front of Tazuna-san. She may not be as strong as her teammates, but she could do this. She had to protect Tazuna-san. She had a few seconds to get a good look at them. One was covered by full-length, ragged black cloak while the other had a baggy, tan tunic over camouflage trousers. They both had a black gas mask over their lower faces and their Kiri Hitayate had metal horns attached, keeping their long, greasy black hair out of their faces. They lunged at her, clawed gauntlets outstretched. Sakura barely had a chance to take a swipe at them with her kunai when blue filled her vision. Sasuke-kun's back blocking her view. She looked over her shoulder just in time to see Naruto swing his remaining sword, sinking it into the side of the enemy Nin with the ragged cloak. Naruto tore it free with a spray of blood and kicked the Nin to the side, before spinning to target the second. She'd never seen him work with his blades before. He had another teacher for that and he practiced different skills when he was with them, so she hadn't realized how skilled he'd become with them. He moved the sword like it was an extension of his arm and he turned on his feet like gravity didn't affect him. She caught the flash of silver in his eyes as he swung the sword up, intent on finishing the fight then and there. A forearm reached across the enemy's neck and jerked him out of the way of Naruto's blade. Sakura felt a lump in her throat as she saw their teacher, alive and well. She didn't know how, but right now, she didn't care. Now, Naruto, we need to keep at least one of them alive for questioning," he drawled, as if he hadn't been torn apart in front of their eyes. "The other one is still breathing," Naruto argued back, wiping the blood off his blade with said shinobi's cloak. He wasn't moving and Sakura didn't think he would be breathing much longer. "You guys did well," Kakashi smiled, dragging the limp body in his arms over to one of the trees by the side of the road. "Your speed training is really paying off and you did well to stand your ground." He was looking at Sakura with that last statement and she felt the warm glow of pride wash over her. She had protected Tazuna-san. She may not have done any of the fighting, but she hadn't frozen up or held the team back. Naruto tore his second sword out of the tree, the chain falling to the ground with a loud clank. Sasuke-kun shoved his hands into his pockets beside her, but she caught the way he was looking at Kakashi-sensei. He wasn't as unaffected by their teacher's trick as he wanted to act. She'd been watching him long enough to know. Was the whole dramatic death scene necessary? Naruto asked, slinging both his sheathed swords back into a cross on his back. It was a little much. I wanted to see how my cute little genin would do on their own, Kakashi-sensei replied casually, like he hadn't added years of stress onto Sakura. He had tied up the remaining chunin and Sakura was making a point not to look at the prone body in the middle of the road. The real question is why two high-level chunin would be targeting a bridge builder, especially on a C-rank mission. All eyes turned to the sweating bridge builder. Naruto frowned as the old man finished his tale of woe. So this bastard Gato, who was some sort of big, important business guy, had pretty much taken over the land of waves and sucked all the money out of them, because he had control over the water and no one could really sneak a boat past him. So they were going to build a bridge? The bridge would mean they could get other business that didn't involve Gato, so he wouldn't be able to continue being a bastard, but Gato knows this, so has been threatening people into giving up on the bridge using some second-rate thugs. So you want us to protect you while you build the bridge? Naruto concluded. Yes, Tazuna nodded, having sobered but considerably since the attack of the demon brothers. We've made a lot of progress, but people are scared. The problem is, Tazuna-san, that you lied to us? Kakashi drawled, but Naruto could tell he was actually pissed. This is a B rank minimum, maybe an A rank. You only requested a C rank, which is why they sent a genin team. This mission is out of our current capabilities. We could only afford a C rank, Tazuna pleaded. Please, we need your help. I say let's do it. All eyes turned to Naruto. We're already here, he continued. They need help and we can do it. There's no point in going all the way back to Konoha to send another team that they can't afford anyway. That's nice of you, said Kakashi, but he was looking at Naruto a little too intensely. He prayed that the Jounin wouldn't figure him out. They couldn't go back to Konoha. He'd already made it this far and this mission was the perfect opportunity to leave Konoha in the dust. There was also a small part of him that wanted to stick it to this Gato guy. Naruto knew rich bullies and he hated them with every fiber of his being. Continuing the mission was a win-win for him. I'm with Naruto, Sasuke spoke up, crossing his arms. We can handle it. They looked at a nervous Sakura. She hesitated. I'm with my team. We should continue with the mission. Naruto honestly hadn't expected her to agree. He thought this mission was a bit much for her at her current level, but he wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth. We all agree, he said, meeting Kakashi's eye. We're continuing the mission. Kakashi met his gaze for a long moment before blinking, looking over to Tazuna. You've still got us then. Tazuna grinned. Thank you. Thank you so much. What should we do with them? Naruto waved a hand over the enemy Nin. One was definitely dead by now, and the one Kakashi had tied up and interrogate didn't look like he was going to wake up anytime soon. We can collect their bounties when we get back, Kakashi shrugged, throwing a scroll over to Naruto. He was your kill, so you can take the bounty. Naruto grinned. The money would come in handy. He should probably feel something more after taking a man's life, but it wasn't his first. That had been not long after he'd started C-ranks with Gai-sensei. He couldn't even remember the man's face. Nice. He ignored Sakura's ill look as he stored the body into the scroll, Kakashi doing the same with the other Chunin. We're not far from the boat now, Tazuna said. We can make it by nightfall and use the darkness as cover from Gato's men. Naruto shoved the scroll into his backpack and moved to follow his teammates back down the road. Things were still going to plan.